Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the sim racing platform known as iRacing, available on PC. And tonight marks round 5 of the 12-round calendar, and as we continue to move closer and closer towards the end of the first half of the season, we've still got 2 frantic rounds of racing action ahead of us, and tonight we'll be seeing while those rounds take place at the Hungarian circuit known none other than as the Hungaroring, or the Hungaroring Grand Prix circuit if you want it in full. Our schedule for tonight is as follows, as we'll be taking a look at the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing lobby. That is lobby number 2. Our schedule will be as follows. At 8 o'clock tonight, so in just under 14 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with qualifying. That is 8 o'clock or 2000 hours Greenwich Mean Time, GMT or UTC. We'll be getting underway with the qualifying session for 15 minutes, and that will determine our grid order for the purposes of the sprint race. The first of our 2 races here at the Hungarian circuit, which takes place immediately after a 15-minute sprint, all in, all out action, no strategy involved other than get to the front of the pack and hold on to the lead until the finish and get maximum possible points, and also some bonus points if you can get the fastest lap. After that, we'll be taking a brief break, but not before having post-race interviews with our class winners, both our winners in the Pro and the Am classes, of course, our 2 classes represented here in lobby number 2, and then we'll take a brief break before returning for the build-up to the 1-hour feature race, and that build-up will start off at 5 to 9 this evening, or 20:55, and then we'll be getting underway with the feature race, the 1-hour race, at 9 o'clock, and that will, of course, be the strategic race, 4 times the length for the sprint, and with that all-important mandatory pit stop, which we'll talk more about in a brief moment. Tonight's broadcast, of course, being brought to you on multiple media platforms available from NXTGEN Racing, whether it be via YouTube, so you can check us out on the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel. You'll be able to catch the broadcast there. Secondly, if you're Facebook inclined, you can go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. The broadcast is available there. Alternatively, if you are Twitch inclined, then you can go to TX141 on Twitch, my personal Twitch channel, in order to tune in. Now, who am I? Of course, I'm your commentator, and my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain's Bit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all the racing action as it goes down tonight in Lobby 2 at the Hungaroring. Now, of course, this lobby is sponsored by Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing, and it's only appropriate that we do introduce our 2 senior partners for this lobby, and we start off, of course, with Coach Dave Academy. Who are they and what do they stand for? Well, Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th of a second, alternatively a whole second, find a way to better tune the car to meet your desired driving style, alternatively looking for critical information as to how to attack a particular circuit or what to watch out for with regards to the curbs and also changing in camber, Coach Dave Academy is the place to go to for all that knowledge. Now, whilst they are primarily focused on a set of course of competition on PC, and that also extends to the consoles to some extent, it is the case that Coach Dave Academy has recently expanded into the iRacing sphere with setups, advice, track maps, etc. So if you do want that information, well, it is the case that some of it is paid for, some of it is free, but it's all available with Coach Dave Academy, and indeed a fantastic service to go for. Do check them out if you want to know more. On top of that as well, we have Next Level Racing, and Next Level Racing, let's introduce our second senior partner for this series. It is Next Level Racing, founded in 2009, and is the world's leading simulation brand, revolutionising simulation with its industry-leading product range, and with a clear focus on innovation and quality to meet the demanding needs of sim racers. Next Level Racing's designs and technology shall take your sim racing experience to the next level. Whether you're looking for a chair, or alternatively the full-blown setup, Next Level Racing is the place to go to for your sim racing experience equipment. And if you want to know more about their products, be sure to head to their official website, that's nextlevelracing.com today, for further information. That website again, nextlevelracing.com. Now, of course, we're very grateful to both of our partners who are contributing to the major prize pool available to our Lobby 2 drives at the end of this series. Of course, there have been prizes available for our top finishers, and there's also prizes available for the driver who has the best livery. On top of that, the most consistent performer, the most improved driver, and also the best overtake of the season. I think I've covered them all. I may have missed 1 or 2. Please forgive me if I have. But coming away from our partners to whom we are forever grateful for supporting us in this series, let's take a look at the standings. So after the opening 4 rounds, the opening third of the series, which last time out we saw our drivers take to the high-speed, high-downforce circuit of Silverstone in the United Kingdom, and now we find ourselves in continental Europe for the first time. It is the case that Paul Walton in the Pro class is leading by 7 points. However, Paul Walton had a difficult time at Silverstone. You can see that particularly in the sprint race, only picking up 3 points in the sprint with a very difficult race where he saw a number of incidents involving himself and other drivers, and it's because of those incidents and the number of instant points that Paul Walton has accrued over the course of the series so far that he will be experiencing a 1 race ban as of tonight. He'll be taking that ban in the sprint race, so we will not be seeing Paul Walton take to the circuit for the sprint. Instead, we will be seeing him take to the circuit for the feature race, only the second race of tonight, and indeed that championship lead of 7 points right now is going to be cut into, at least we would expect, as his main rival Gareth Williams there in P2, who had the lion's share of the points last time out in the Pro class at Silverstone, now up to 140 points. Williams will know this is a huge opportunity to gain that momentum and take the lead of the championship at a critical juncture. But do not count out the likes of Dan Morey, alternatively Alistair Kirk there, with Dan Morey picking up driver of the day in the Pro class last time out at Silverstone, and Alistair Kirk as well putting in a good performance, those two down 107 and 104 points each. It is the case that whilst they're both competing for P3 and trying to break away from the likes of Lamont Wedder, Michael Seal and Josh Wiggins, those drivers are trying to nip onto the heels of Williams and Walton. Looking outside of our top 7 there, Stefan Albanese, the Italian driver known for his defensive finesse, currently in P8, having a difficult day at Silverstone. Will we see him bounce back tonight at a circuit? Well, I think his defensive driving is going to be something which will reward him very well if he can nail it in qualifying. But more about that in a little while. Matthew Proughton in P9 and Nigel Stott there complete in our top 10, but as you can see, running from P10 all the way up to P5 is the case that only 13 points separating those drivers in the campaign to get into the top 5, and Lamont Wedder right now will be feeling that pressure going into this round. Outside the top 10 of the Pro class, Paul Scott in P11 right now, only a further 2 points off of our P10 man, and as a result, Paul Scott also looking for an opportunity to break back into the top 10. And Nathan J. Scott, the two Scotts there, not related as far as I'm aware, but it is the case that both of them looking to get points on the board. But Paul Scott with a 9-point advantage mean that he is now starting to make that gradual break from the chasing pack. However, it could be one misplaced result which will see him fall back into that hunting pack, and Nathan Scott, alternatively Koshi Kelly there in P13, picking up the pieces and making their campaign charge towards the top 10. James Neave in P14 were a good pair of results last time out at Silverstone, 5 points ahead of Ed May in P15, and as we look down to Stuart P. Taylor there in P16, not able to start, not able to take part at Silverstone, as a result not moving beyond his current haul of 54 points, and instead now joins on 54 points with Paul Williams in P17, and only on countback is Taylor ahead of Williams. Rick Jansen in P18, Jamie Dory and Daniel Merchant in P20 completing our order there for our top 20 in the Pro class, and outside our top 20 we have Sam Holman and Chris Perry, who were not able to make it to the Silverstone circuit last time out. Meanwhile, in the AM Championship, the story is a little bit different, although somewhat the same as well. It is the case that we do have 2 drivers who are really competing for the lead right now, with Mark Baker and Stephan Wessels there in the top 2, and you can see separated by only 8 points. Mark Baker's campaign has been one built on overall consistency. Whilst he's not been the outright fastest driver within the class, indeed Stephan Wessels would have that accolade based on outright pace in qualifying in particular, or 1-lap pace. Baker has been the more consistent of the 2 performers, and that's why he's currently 8 points ahead. However, we should give credit to Stephan Wessels, the rookie driver, who in his opening series of iRacing, it should be pointed out, it is the case that whilst he has been a sim racer for some time, this is his inaugural series on iRacing, and we're very grateful that he's joined us for that inaugural series. It's the case that Stephan Wessels starting to find some consistency, and that appeared last time out at Silverstone, albeit contact on the opening lap into turn 1 when he out-qualified the Anfield by the best part of 10 positions. Contact with a pro driver meant Wessels dropped down the order and missed out on making it a maximum points haul, and indeed now he has got to do the recovery work to get back ahead of Mark Baker today, but those two very close. Davide Favo, Gareth Mills and Mark Sykes and Elwyn Sykes there completing your top 6, and not to count out Davide Favo down to Elwyn Sykes there, the 4 drivers there all within only 18 points from one another, and a great battle building for P3 in the championship. And indeed if Wessels or Mark Baker drop points, it will be the case that those guys will look to pick up the pieces rather rapidly. Again, we have Darren Doherty there in P7, not able to make it to the Silverstone circuit last time out, so as a result missed, but we look forward to seeing him potentially return tonight, and indeed he is here at the Hungaroring circuit. We did see his entourage arrive earlier tonight. Liam Tack, Tom Delaney and Chris Keenan completing our top 10, and then outside the top 10 in the AM standings we can see Mark Jardine now on 51 points, not able to pick up any points last time out at Silverstone, unable to participate, and Renus Hamren taking part in the sprint race, gaining a further 14 points to his campaign, now only 1 point off of Jardine. Luke Hobson not able to make it, nor Paul Colburn, but Travis Linscome-Hatfield on his debut, the American putting in a stellar performance, finishing on the podium in both races, and as a result Linscome-Hatfield now looking for a major opportunity to get even more points on the board tonight and continue to push towards the top 10. I reckon he does have that momentum with him. Jack Wyborn, Rhys Young, Adam B.M. Quinn, Tom Porter and Josh Brown completing our top 20, and our final standings for the AM drivers going into round number 5. Meanwhile, in the team standings, and remember these team scores apply across the teams in both Lobby 1, so the Apex Racing Academy lobby, and Lobby 2. There are teams across both lobbies. We can see that after 4 rounds it is Luxim24 with M&V Esports, which is currently leading by a margin of 34 points, picking up a great points haul last time out at Silverstone, putting them clear of the pursuing pack, albeit just 1 round could turn it all around. With RD Simsport now moving into P2 with a 9-point advantage over Team RTA, and Switchback Motorsport there on 265 points in a battle for P4 with Ignium Spark Steel, with 2 points only separating the two teams. In P6, CXR Project Black on 251 points with a good day at Silverstone, particularly in the feature race, putting a gap on Altitude Esports there in P7, with NXTGEN Orange, Apex with M&V Esports and Delta Motorsport completing our top 10. Outside of the top 10, we can see NextGen Blue there continuing their campaign, but feeling that pressure from Team Tetrarouge, and both teams being very close on points hauls last time out, and Team Tetrarouge closing the gap to NextGen Blue in being the team to be outside the top 10, but the primary contender to get into the top 10 from P11. TGC Racing P13 ahead of McChange B2 and Ignium Motorsport complete in P15 before RD Simsport 2, SVPMR, TRM Blue, Bright Esports and McChange B1 completing our top 20. All those teams looking for opportunities to get more points on the board tonight. Outside of our top 20, we can see Ignium Blazer in P21 with 162 points. The best part of 13 points clear of TRN Red, but we know the Team Racing Netherlands outfit having quite a bit of bad luck so far and being involved in incidents, and will be looking to bounce back tonight. And that's not just Red, but the entire TRN outfit will be looking to get some major points. Ignium Motorsport Phoenix in P23, TRN Orange in the penultimate position of P24, and DDR there in P25, again consisting of the sole driver Rhys Carroll, who was not able to take part last time out at Silverstone. And a shout out to RC Sim Photography, or Rhys Carroll Sim Photography, for all the images you see in our thumbnails and also in the background of our standing sheets. Brilliant photography, and if you are looking for some professional sim photography, I can definitely recommend RC Sim Photography. But now, coming away from our standings to where are we tonight? We are at the track of the Hungaroring Grand Prix circuit in Magyarország, Hungary. We're going to continental Europe for the first of what is 6 rounds in continental Europe, extending from round number 5 up to round number 10 inclusive. And as you can see from the image provided to us by Sim Racing Wiki, this circuit, tight, twisty and a very difficult one to overtake at, consisting of 14 corners, and the major overtaking zones for this circuit are turns 1, 2, 4 and 14, and it is the case that around here it's going to be rather difficult for drivers to get the moves on one another, and it's all about qualifying, or at least we'd expect, and in the feature it's going to be all about strategy. But we can show you a diagram, or we can show you a reference app as brought to you by Koshi Kelly here. Let's take you around the Hungarian circuit. So making his way out of turn number 14 in the BMW M4 GT3 here, the 2021 prototype machine, and as he charges all the way down towards turn number 1, a long straight here and a great place to get an overtaking opportunity in, with the slipstream coming out the final corner and looking for his brake mark on the left hand side, breaking that 100 metre ward and coming all the way down the gears to second gear for the turn 1 hairpin. You can see there the circuit widening as he makes his way out of the corner and getting on the throttle nice and early as he makes his way down the hill into turn 2. A downhill braking zone, you'll see he brakes there at the start of the curb on the right hand side, coming down to second gear and keeping it nice and tight to the apex before gradually building up the throttle, keeping the car to the left here to go into the right hander at turn 3. Our drivers can ride high on that apex curve, but you can see it can unsettle the car if it goes wrong. Charging up towards turn 4 right now, a trail braking corner here, and as he makes his way in a dab of the brakes, brings it down to third gear and then powering through off apex before charging it into the hairpin of turn 5. A slightly faster hairpin here compared to turn number 1, but one of those corners where you've got to feel the car biting into the apex before getting on the throttle as he charges into the chicane of turn 6 to 7, going all the way down to second gear, climbing over the apex curbs there of each of the chicane corners before now charging up towards turn 8. This is where it gets tight and twisty as he comes through the left into right combination here in second gear, and as soon as he clears the corner he'll be building up the throttle to go back into third. Then he comes up into turn number 10, and as he makes his way through the left into right once again here, quite a symmetry between the corners. You can see a little bit faster through turns 10 and 11 compared to 8 and 9, and that's the short charge down towards turn number 12. Another potential overtaking opportunity if a driver is close enough coming into the heavy braking zone for this second gear corner. Right angle corner complete, he now makes his way to turn 13, another hairpin, and also the corner which precedes the pit lane entry on the right hand side. And we'll see a number of drivers here potentially get confused or out of position going into the pits as he makes his way into 14, the final corner, another hairpin style corner here, and as he makes his way around, feels the nose bite and gets on the throttle and builds it up as he exits out the corner. A brilliant that though by Kelly, and one which we'll be seeing time and time again executed by him and our other drivers tonight. As for our rules, we can see here that we do have some new rules introduced, and those are in red, and we'll take you through those very shortly. But to remind you, our setup, our drivers are running fixed setups, and it is the iRacing high downforce setup for tonight's races that is being used. In both races, our drivers will have one fast repair available, and there will be drive-through penalties awarded to drivers if they accumulate a certain number of instant points. In the sprint race, it's 17. In the feature race, it's 25. Now, as for the feature race, we have two new rules introduced tonight due to safety concerns, and that is, firstly, that the grid in the feature race will now be set as a reverse grid based on the reverse of the Drivers' Championship standings order as of the championship standings going into this round. So what that means is the driver in each class who was at the head of their respective class championship going into this round will be starting at the back of the field. But more importantly, and why am I quite clear on it's each class? Because we will also be separating the grid into driver classes, so no more intermixing of the pros and the AMs going into the feature race. It will be the case that the pros start ahead of the AMs, and they'll be starting approximately 2 seconds ahead, and there is a designated start zone which will be, and we'll point that out to you very shortly, but it will be the case that start zone marks the start of the race for both classes, but the pros start the race before the AMs, and it will be a 2-second gap between the two groups of drivers in order to try and avoid those potential major incidents going into the opening series of corners. It was something that was discussed with our drivers and indeed discussed with the officials, and has decided to go with this for round 5 onwards in order to see whether this can avoid those potential incidents. Not to say our drivers are driving dirty or uncleanly, it's just the case this is something that's been observed and the feedback has been taken on board. So as a result, what it will mean is that in terms of each of the sets of drivers, in the pros who will start at the front, our pro championship leader going into this round, so that will be Paul Walton, he'll be starting at the back, and that's going to be even more painful for Paul Walton given he cannot take part in the sprint race to get points on the board. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it will be the case that Mark Baker starts at the back of the AM class group when they make their way around the circuit in the formation lap and the manual double file rolling start. On top of that, the feature race has not changed otherwise, with drivers starting fuel loads restricted to 70%, and that encourages that mandatory pit stop, which requires drivers to take on fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. But with that, I think that's enough talking about the rules and whatnot. Let's head back to those live cameras as our drivers are now taking their way to the circuit for the purposes of qualifying. And indeed, as all of our drivers are making their way out right now, and they're on their out laps as it currently stands, as we start to bring all of the data and information up on your screen for you, it is the case that our drivers right now itching to go, and we can see that it's the case that Gareth Williams, one of our very first drivers to make their way around, indeed I believe our first driver to come out of the pit and to go onto a lap here. What can Gareth Williams do? That is the big question as he comes around to make his way on. And in fact, Stephan Albanese just a little bit ahead in there, so he's one of our opening drivers to go onto their qualifying lap as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. And we're going to take a look at our second place man in the Pro Championship from an exterior perspective as he comes on down. So a nice clean turn 1 here, and as he makes his way through the corner, a little bit wide of apex. But you can afford to go a little bit deep into the corner. It is not the case that you have to have that perfect tight line. As we see Gareth Williams now coming down into turn number 2. It's one of those situations where I think he's just trying to feel out the circuit right now. And track temperature is very high here in the sprint race from what we're gathering. Our driver's very wary of the fact that the track temperature has been so high as to make it quite a tricky circuit to drive around. And as he makes his way on down right now, it does look as though here Gareth Williams just feeling out the circuit right now on his opening flying lap. And just getting a feel for what's possible, how much he can push, and also keeping it well within his limits as he makes his way there through turn number 5. And as he comes on through for the time being, we do just check in with our stewards, and nothing from our stewards being reported. It is the case that everything is proceeding as planned as Williams now makes his way through turn number 8 and into turn number 9 here. With 3 minutes of this qualifying session already complete, we are expecting somewhere in the region of about 5 to 6 laps to be completed by our drivers in terms of fast laps in this qualifying session. And as Gareth Williams now makes his way into 11 here, looking rather smooth, but I do think that he's not quite pushing it to the maximum he could right now, and I think that may be for the simple reason that he's perhaps feeling at this time that he hasn't got the tyres and the car in the ideal operating window. Because we did see a little bit of a slide at turn number 1, the same in turn number 2, and also coming into turn number 5 as he makes his way through 13 there, a very clean line, and now heads up towards 14, and as he comes on through the right hand here to complete the lap, he goes deep into the corner here, and that is a sign potentially that he's building up to a new lap rather than sticking to this one. But he's going to come across that timing line, and what is going to be our opening lap that's set by Gareth Williams, well, I'll be able to tell you, and there it is, it finally comes up. It is a 46.6. It is not a lap which he's going to be happy with, because Mark Baker, our AM driver here, goes faster by almost 3.5 tenths of a second. And indeed, well, in fact, Seal then comes on through, and it is the case that Seal himself, Michael Seal, our pro driver here in the Ignium Motorsport machine, the Porsche 911, as he makes his way through turn 1 at 45.8, as we see Daniel Merchant now brings in a lap time of a 45.7, and those lap times now starting to come in thick and fast, as we see Alistair Kirk goes P2, and then it's William Foyle there, who I believe are making his debut in the series tonight. We don't currently have him assigned to a class. You'll just have to give me a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, to get William Foyle assigned, but I believe it is the case that William Foyle making his way on through right now downhill and down towards turn number 2 here. And the Audi driver currently setting the fastest lap of the session at 45.419 as he goes sideways there at turn number 2 and just loses the rear end under braking and pulls the car off the circuit immediately and brings it back together, as we see Paul Williams then going P2 in the Ferrari 488 here. And it is the case the Team Tetra Rouge driver really starting to build that momentum over the course of this championship. After the first 4 rounds, we have seen him go from strength to strength, and will we potentially see an even better set of results from him tonight? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but it is the case that right now it does seem as though Williams is finding that pace that he needs as he makes his way around the circuit here, and as he does so for the time being, we are just trying to get that confirmation for you with regards to Foyle, which team and also which class he's in. As soon as we get it, we will let you know. But in the meantime, we can see just Paul Williams making his way around into turn number 5. And it is the case that I can confirm to you, ladies and gentlemen, that William Foyle, I should say, is a pro driver. So we are just going to get that updated on our screens. So that will appear very shortly for you. But as we continue to watch Paul Williams here, making his way around the circuit right now, looking very smooth indeed, is Williams as he comes on through here. And currently a provisional P4 within class and overall. And I can imagine that he will want to try and build a little bit more compared to what he's been previously able to achieve in this qualifying session. But just building himself up to that, no doubt here. He doesn't need to push it too hard initially, just gradually build up towards a big lap as he makes his way around the circuit. And as he continues to come down here into turn number 13, he makes his way on through as we do get that update to our time screens there, and that is now William Foyle confirmed racing for Crest Autosport, and we'll come to William Foyle very shortly. We see here Paul Williams making his way through the final corner, and well, very smooth indeed. Does he improve? He is improved on the first 2 sectors. He crosses that timing line, and it is going to be an improvement for the Briton, but it is the case it's not enough to jump a position, but it does move now up to a 45.63, which is a good lap. Indeed, I think that's going to bode him very well going into the latter portion of this qualifying session. Now, whilst we are looking around, let's introduce William Foyle here, so the Crest Autosport driver, and we're also going to try and get his livery loaded for you. So you are going to see all our drivers' cars go white for a brief moment, but they will have their liveries reappear very shortly, and hopefully we will be able to see the Crest Autosport machine in its full flying colours as we continue to watch Foyle here make his way down into turn number 1. And from what I'm hearing down in the paddock with regards to the Crest Autosport team in general, a very strong professional outfit, and indeed it's no surprise that Foyle in the Pro Class, they're one of their strong drivers. And indeed, well, if the case that a team has strong drivers and weak drivers, that's a bit of an insult to some of the drivers there, but I think you get what I mean. It is the case for a very fun, fast and committed driver, and in that Audi R8 we can imagine that he is going to be quite quick, and not too many Audi R8s as we see in the back of your picture. Daniel Merchant getting it very wrong through turn number 3 and puts the car literally on the side of the road where drivers are not coming through as he tries to reverse now. He's got not too much traffic coming through, although he's got Alistair Kirk coming down the road. You'll see him in the top right corner of your screen, and there's Alistair Kirk flashing his lights feverishly there. He does not want to make contact, but I think it was just a case there that Daniel Merchant got it a bit wrong coming through to, oh goodness me, and another car experiencing a similar similar moment there, and as we look back, well, Matthew Broughton making his way down, and that was, I think, unless I'm very much mistaken, that was Michael Seal getting it horrifically wrong. We'll just take a look around. Indeed, Seal has jumped back to the pits, and right now we're waiting for that Porsche 911. Well, it wasn't, in fact, it wasn't Seal. I believe it was another car, but right now a livery's loading in as well, as we've still got half of this qualifying session to go, and we say hello to you guys and girls in the chat. And we can see we've got Rafael Santobarbara there in the YouTube chat, and we hope you're doing, Rafael, as always. Matt Emmons as well in the YouTube chat. Good to see you, Matt. And we can also see Paul Walton in the YouTube chat, or Paul Pecco, cheering on Joshua Wiggins while sitting on the naughty step and missing out on qualifying, and also the sprint race. And we can see the RD Simsport driver here in the Porsche 911 as he makes his way into the pits here. So he's decided to come in and put on a fresh pair of tyres with just over 5 minutes of this qualifying session to go. I think a sensible call here from the RD Simsport driver, given the rubber is now starting to go down, and as he makes his way in, currently P4, he is the best part, however, of what is currently 0.6 of a second off of that pole, and I think he's going to need to try and find some magic, as we see Alistair Kirk now puts himself back into provisional P2. Wiggins soldiering on there, and we can see that we've also got Greg B there in the YouTube chat. Literally said it live in the sprint race last week. Walton sent, well, it is a case that Greg B, that is a interpretation, of course, of your own opinion. I'm not going to say anything on that, but indeed the stewards have deemed that there's been enough collisions, or sorry, instance I should say, between Walton and other drivers for Walton to be given the one race ban. But I hope you're still doing well, Greg, and having a good time, as we see all of our drivers here making their way around still in this qualifying session. But as they do, we can see Elwyn Sykes here. Meanwhile, one of the two Sykes drivers here, of course, we've also got Mark Sykes, but unfortunately Mark Sykes not able to participate tonight due to personal circumstances. We do wish Mark and all the drivers not able to make it to the race tonight all the best, of course, and we wish all our drivers taking part well, and good luck to all of our drivers here. But it is the case that right now Elwyn Sykes in P18, that's P5 in class, and to give you an idea of how the lap times weigh up between our drivers, as we just bring up that class display for you, and we just try and get it up here on screen. Here currently are our top 5 times in the Pro class, and also our top 5 times in the AM class. And you can see that right now in the Pros, it is the case that Gareth Williams out on a 44.849, the best part of 2.5 tenths ahead of Alistair Kirk, and Darren Doherty by comparison, well, he is on a 45.8, so the best part of a second off of our fastest Pro driver, but in return Darren Doherty 1.5 tenths ahead of Linscome-Hatfield as of the remaining 4.5 minutes of this qualifying session. We've still got plenty of time, and as our drivers make their way on through right now, it is the case that everybody just trying to find a little bit more lap time here, but where can they find it is the big question. And remember, for the sprint race, we will not have the class segregated grid. It will be the case that there will be Pros intermixed with the AMs if that's the way it ends up. So it is the case that right now everybody has got to put in the best possible time, because remember, you can see it here visually regards to the circuit how tight it is at the Hungaroring, and that's why qualifying is so important. And also you'll notice that a lot of drivers are trying to give themselves space from one another, at least a couple of seconds, say 2 to 3 seconds minimum, but ideally 4 to 5 seconds from the driver ahead and the driver behind. And that is because around here slipstream is not going to do you too many favours unless it's on the start finish straight, but it's very hard to catch the toe down there unless the driver literally does it for you as part of a bit of teamwork. But right now, as we look around, it is the case that Gareth Williams fastest in the first 2 sectors, and is this going to be an even faster provisional pole lap as he makes his way out of the final corner here? Well, if so, what's he going to drop the bar down? It's a 45, well, that is a 44.6. That is almost 2 tenths faster than his previous best, and Gareth Williams putting almost half a second between himself and Alistair Kirk. Now, will anybody be able to respond? That is the big question. Well, I do think it's the case that Kirk right now putting in a stint and a half in order to try and get that pole lap, but I don't think he's going to be able to get it here as all our drivers make their way around, and as they do so for the time being, it's one of those situations whereby I think as it currently stands, where you can imagine that Kirk at this point will be thinking about just trying to bring home that P2 in this qualifying session. Meanwhile, with William Fall here as he makes his way on through, as he comes through turn number 4, and there's number 44 Audi there makes its way into the corner. We've got a number of cars going wrong. Hatfield there, Linscome-Hatfield getting it wrong also. I think that was, by the looks of things, Nigel Stock having had a bit of a moment. They both jumped back to the pits from what I'm hearing, but it is the case that both drivers are involved in moments at turn number 4. Very tricky corner indeed. This circuit very, very difficult in these high temperatures, and you can see that there with Foyle just going a little bit deep under braking into 8, where the car just came around a bit too aggressively on him, and as he makes his way now through 10 and 11 into the right-hander 11 he comes here. What is the kind of lap falls on? Well, he hasn't improved in Sector 1. What about Sector 2? Has he improved here? I think he may have lost out a little bit with that moment where he has improved on his personal best. He's just gone across that timing line, and he is up on his previous best there. Now, what about the final sector? It's going to be make or break, and we know that Audi R8 very, very strong around here, but it's got to be balanced very delicately as he makes his way through 13 and into 14. Can Foyle potentially jump up into the top 4 or higher in his class as they make the way around through the final corner? And as he comes across that timeline, what's it going to be? It's going to be the case that he does not improve enough to jump position, but he does improve to a 45.438. So Foyle, 9 is still more time on the board. In fact, his best is a 45.42. I should apologise for that. We're a little bit behind there in terms of the times. But Foyle, 9, he's got time out on the circuit, but not enough to improve so far. But meanwhile, telling you a driver who is currently on a lap, and he needs to get one in soon, because right now it's not looking as though he's going to be moving up the order anytime soon, because he's yet to put in a recognised lap, and that's for track limits and also not complete in the lap, and that is our P2 man in the AM Championship, Stephan Wessels right now. Well, he's gone the fastest of anybody in Sector 2, and as he makes his way out to the final corner, is this going to be a last minute snatch and grab for pole position in the AM class? Well, he's crossed the timeline there, and my goodness, Stephan Wessels with a lap that's faster than the provisional pole lap in the Pro class by the best part of 1.5 tenths. With Wessels wanting to do it late, he's definitely left a message which is better late than never, as it is the case that right now that lap is 1.3 seconds faster than anybody else in the AM class. And Darren Doherty right now, I think he's sat in the pits. Well, he won't be going out again, but Darren Doherty right now must be thinking he had it all done, and then Wessels to come and just deliver a lap of what, well, it's a lap from the gods. Surely we can use that term a lot with regards to Formula 1 when we talk about laps done by Ayrton Senna, for example, that Wessels finding a way to deliver a monster lap. And right now, as the checkered flag is out with 5 seconds to go this qualifying session, it is the case, well, Gareth Williams will have in mind as we change back to our standard classification screen for qualifying here. And as you can see, it is the case that Stephan Wessels right now with that lap will be starting on pole overall, not just pole in class, and he's put the best part of the entirety of the pro field between himself and the other AM drivers. That is monstrous as we see more laps coming in. We're looking at Gareth Williams right now. Well, it's the case we're expecting him to be our pole sitter in the pro class here. I think his heart might have jumped a beat as well, as right now he's not improving, so he will be coming into the pits at the end of this lap. What about other drivers out there, I hear you ask? Well, we've got Stuart P. Taylor right now on lap, the TGC Racing driver, coming through turn number 12 and making his way up towards 13, and we can see it as he comes on through here. He's got Daniel Merchant behind him, but most of our drivers have finished their qualifying session as he makes his way through the corner, and as he comes on through, can we see Taylor improving from P22 here as he makes his way through the right hand? It does look as though this track has caught a number of drivers out as he makes his way on through. Is it going to be an improvement? He comes across that timing line. Will he be able to move a bit closer to his peers? It is an improvement to 46.7, but it's not enough to move from P22. So in the end, ladies and gentlemen, pole position does go to Stephan Wessels in the AM class and overall. And as for pole position in the when Stephan Wessels takes pole position in the AM class and overall, I should say, and well, Gareth Williams, meanwhile, takes pole position in the pro class, and he will be sharing that front row with the AM class pole position driver, as it is the case now. Qualifying is complete, and we can see Alistair Kurt and Paul Williams taking it to that second row, and Darren Doherty being second place in the AM class there in P13. Well, my goodness, what a qualifying session, as we now take a look to the chat here, and we can see it's the case. And no further messages from you guys and girls at the moment, but do not be shy. Feel free to say hi, as we are now just waiting to transition over to the race. Well, I think we might have Stuart Taylor still out on circuit somewhere, albeit he did finish his last lap, so I think this is more just him loitering around and bringing the car back into the pits very gently, because he is the only car out on circuit according to our track map right now, as you can see on the right hand side of your screen in the top right corner, as we see Stuart Taylor flashing his lights. I think 9, he's on camera there. It's great advertising, of course, for Team TGC and also the sponsors on that car. and I think that's why he might also be out there just to spread the word of TGC, and why not? We know Taylor, a lovely gentleman down in the paddock indeed, loved by a good number of guys outside the TGC team as well, and as he makes his way around right now, he comes down towards turn number 12, just gradually bringing the car into the pits. But what a story in qualifying. Stephan Wessels, we know how strong his pace is. He qualified P3 overall at Silverstone, as there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of qualifying. Our results are confirmed, and it is now time to form the grid for the purposes of the sprint race, race number 1. So let's take you through that grid. So as we can see there, pole position taken by Stephan Wessels overall, our pole position overall and in the AM class with a 44.6. Only, well, the best part of 0.2 faster than our pole position in the pro class of Gareth Williams. Row number 2 going to the pro drivers of Alistair Kirk and Paul Williams. Behind them, row number 3, Dan Murray and Michael Seal. Watch out for Dan Murray, a very consistent and strong driver, particularly in the sprint races. William Ford and Matthew Proutin on row number 4, with Josh Wiggins and Daniel Merchant on row number 5. Then on row number 6, Kosh Kelly and James Neve, and as we continue to look further down the order, is the case on row number 7. It'll be Darren Doherty, your second place man in the AM class, and alongside him will be Stefan Albanese, the Italian stallion, the defensive giant, who will look to utilise his defensive capabilities here at the Hungaroring circuit to his maximum. Travis Linscome-Hatfield in P15, the AM driver, joined by Paul Scott in P16, Mark Baker and Nigel Stock 17th and 18th, and then Davide Favo and Gareth Mills completing our top 20. The two AM drivers there together, and the two South African drivers, great friends and great rivals, and you can imagine that GM Racing would like to try and get the upper hand on Davide Favo. Elwyn Sykes and Stuart Taylor line up on row number 11, and then Nathan J. Scott and Chris Keenan completing row number 12. And outside of our 12th row, our final two rows, Paul Colburn and Liam Tack line up on the 13th row, and Jack Wyborn and Paul Walton line up on our 14th row, last but not least. But of course, Walton, with that race ban, will not be taken to the circuit, but he is classified there for the purposes of our standings. Well, that is the grid covered, ladies and gentlemen, and now we look back to the field here, as we will have the partial rolling start here, in terms of we'll be doing only a third of the lap under the manual double file warm up and then into the rolling start, and this time it will be Stephan Wessels who takes us away from pole position in approximately 10 seconds. And as we can see here, all our drivers getting ready to go as they all line up, and as we can see the gridding now complete, it is time for the build up to race number 1 as they make their way through the final couple of corners, and the safety car will take us away. As we say, good evening and hello to Martin Brinkworth there from the NXTGEN Racing stewarding team. Of course, these races, whilst they're not live stewarded, they are post-race stewarded by the NXTGEN Racing officials, Martin Brinkworth being one of many, and of course our professional stewarding team keeping their eyes on everything that's going on. As our drivers make their way through, and it's for Stephan Wessels to take us away to the green. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 at the Hungaroring, as you see Stephan Wessels getting a decent start, but look behind him, you can see Alistair Kirk already squirming, with Dan Murray getting a phenomenal launch off the line here. He's already gained 2 places, and as they make their way into the braking zone for turn 1, it's going to be Dan Murray on the inside here, but Wessels holds the position, or does he? Is behind. Alistair Kirk looks to move on Gareth Williams, and then as we look further back here, all of our drivers coming through, no major contact from any of our drivers here, as everybody seems to have made it through the opening corners intact and safe. But as we look back up towards our leader right now, Dan Murray did make the position, he's gained the position, and as they come down through turn number 3 right now, it is the case that everybody will start to concertina together, as we see William Fowler going wide, and we've got Alistair Kirk going for a spin. Oh, goodness me, there's even further contact further down the road. That's one of the Ignium Motorsport machines, as Chris Keenan gets it wrong under his own steering, and another TGC machine gets it wrong there. It is the case TGC Racing have a very, very difficult start to this race, as we've got even more cars. Gareth Mills involved in there as well. We will try to dissect that very shortly for you as to what exactly's happened, but 5 drivers involved in a major crash coming out of 3. But meanwhile, looking back up towards the front of the pack, we can see it's the case that Dan Murray leading ahead of Stephan Wessels, and he's put the AM driver between himself and Gareth Williams here, and this is not what Williams will have wanted. He will have wanted to have got past Wessels and taken the lead of this race, because he knows that right now every point he gains in this race he will be able to gain over Paul Walton for free. But behind, William Foyle will have something to say about that as they close up into the braking zone for turn number 12, and behind them we can see Paul Williams, the Team Tetra Rouge driver, having a good start to this race, holding on to P6, but as they make their way into left-hander right now, he does have Seal closing up behind him. As you can see, Josh Wiggins there going a little bit deep under braking into 13, but brought it back under control as he comes now into 14. So after one lap of racing at the Hungaroring, as they make their way out of the final corner, it is Dan Murray leading by the best part of 5/10 of a second ahead of Stephan Wessels in P2. Our AM class leader right now chasing after our Pro class leader. Then it's Gareth Williams in P3, followed by William Foyle in P4. Then it's Josh Wiggins P5, followed by Paul Williams P6. Then it's Michael Sill in P7, followed by James Neve in P8 here, followed by Stephan Albanese, and then Matthew Prouting completing our top 10. We've then got Travis Linscome-Hatfield currently P2 in the AM class here, ahead of Nigel Stock and Paul Scott behind. Then Elwyn Sykes, followed by Jack Wyborn. Jack Wyborn here in P15 right now, the AM class driver P4 in class. Paul Colburn P16, Chris Keenan P17, Mark Baker P18, and Davide Faro P19, and last but not least, Liam Tack in the P20 when we talk about our top 20. But you can see just behind there, Stuart Taylor carrying on racing right now, and we'll very shortly take a look back at what happened in that opening lap incident. There were a lot of sparks, but meanwhile, as we look back up towards the front of the field, we can see Michael Sill here, who we ride on board with, trying to close the distance to Paul Williams. But this is the trick with regards to this circuit. You've got to close up through the twisty sections, so that way you're able to go for that move on the opening sequence of corners. And Sill will be very aware that the EVM Motorsport driver here, very well respected within the sim racing community, as he looks for a potential move here into 9, with Williams having a very poor run through the corner as they make the way through 10 and into 11 right now. I think Sill caught Williams at the wrong time, and I know that sounds contradicting, catching a driver at the wrong time and getting that close. We'll really hear at the Hungaroring, when you catch a driver in sector 2, you do not want to be that close, because if you do, you've got to back out unless the driver in front makes the mother of all mistakes. And it is the case that Williams not quite making a huge mistake, just a minor one in the end. And you can see Wiggins tapping the back there of Foyle just ahead. It is the case that everybody started to square up and try and look for moves here as the drivers come through the final corner once again. We look at Wiggins right now, another Porsche driver here, the RD Simsport driver trying to close up to the back of Foyle. Now the challenge, of course, for our Porsche driver is the fact that Audi R8, when it's planted out of the corners, and if it nails it, that Audi V10 engine is able to just out-drag the Porsche in the run down the straights, even with the slipstream available. You can see that there with Wiggins not really gaining, and instead the drivers staying as they were. And behind, it's a similar situation for what is Sill after Sill chasing down Paul Williams here, with the Ferrari just having a little bit more legs on the straight, albeit the two cars very strong in the acceleration zones. But it is the case the Ferrari just having that slightly better engine performance going into 4th and 5th gear as they make their way down through turn number 3 once again. And as they come charging down through turn number 3, you can see how it is the case that Sill really closed up as behind. We've got Stephan Albanese under major pressure from Matthew Prouting, but we know now the Italian's going to go defensive where he needs to, as he goes a bit wide there through turn at number 4. He's got to be careful, of course, with track limits. There will be potential slowdowns handed out if he uses those track limits too liberally. And as he makes his way into the chicane right now, definitely feeling the pressure as Albanese as they come into the braking zone for the chicane through turn 6 and 7. And you can see the two BMW drivers there, Prouting full of confidence and able to go full attack through the corners as they make their way through turn at number 9 now and head up towards 10, 11 once again. But meanwhile, whilst this is all going on, we are going to take a look back at what happened earlier on with that major incident on the opening lap. And let's take a look back now. My apologies, that's towards the end of the incident rather than at the start of the incident. Let's take a look at what happened from Gareth Mills' perspective. Well, all the cars there parting the seats to avoid the wayward cars, and there was contact there between the Ferrari, the TGC Ferrari, which tapped Gareth Mills, and Gareth Mills clipped, I believe, what was Darren Doherty, and that is where we saw a part of the incident continue, and then we saw the earlier portion of the incident. That's how Gareth Mills got involved into the mix there, and also Darren Doherty. It's not been a good start for a number of drivers, as meanwhile we look back to the live pictures right now. You can see a Mills there in the rear view picture moving out the way as he is now a lap down. Indeed, a number of drivers having to deal with that situation of being a lap down after coming out of the pits with that fast repair, and an open lap incident so painful in the sprint race. We've only completed a third of the sprint race so far, but indeed the pain is being felt by those drivers involved in that opening lap incident. But meanwhile, as we look back to our battle for P8 here, you can see James Neve has fallen back to a degree as they make their way into turn number 3 here, and it is the case that Neve right now, well, he will be looking to try and get back towards Sill. In fact, as they make their way charging up the hill towards turn at number 4 right now, I think it's one of those situations where for Neve, he just wants to keep his head down. He does, of course, have that Lamborghini ahead of him. That is a Lamborghini that is a lap down. I believe that is Quosha Kelly. And as they make their way through the corners right now, and we do bring up our battle box very shortly for you in order to show you everything that is happening between our drivers and to give you an idea of the orders amongst drivers. It is the case that Michael Sill has found a way past Paul Williams. Now it's just a little bit further up the road. How did that happen? Let's take a look. So as they made the way out the chicane here, Paul Williams going a bit deep and still just had the overspeed. Then we don't normally see moves into turn number 8, but still having that confidence, having the speed, and he got it done. A nice move by Still in an unconventional overtaking spot, and he's up into P5 in class, P6 overall, as he now goes to hunt down Wiggins, who in return is trying to find to do a similar thing versus William Foyle in terms of overtaking the Audi driver ahead of him. And where's Wiggins? Well, Wiggins is here right now, continuously hounding the back of the Audi R8 in front of him, and indeed Foyle closing up to the back of Williams right now. And I think it may be the case that Gareth Williams is feeling a little bit of pressure as they make the way down towards turn number 1. And again, as they charge on down here, the BMW M4 is very strong on the straights here, and as he makes his way into the braking zone, no change between these guys, but it is definitely a building up to a potential crescendo. They do of course have Stephan Wessels ahead of them, who's not to get involved effectively. He has no means to get involved in the racing, but you never know what the AM driver might want to do. As meanwhile we look a little bit further down the order here, we are here, and there's been a bit of a shake-up, and it looks as though Mark Baker gaining positions here, going past Davide Favo. Now, was Favo involved in an incident with someone, I'm wondering? I'm hearing there's been a bit of an incident involving Favo and potentially Paul Coburn, as we can see here, Coburn trying to hold on versus Jack Wyborn. Jack Wyborn in the full Ferrari, liveried Ferrari there, and I know that sounds a little bit silly, but imagine the Ferrari Formula 1 car as mapped onto a Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, and that's what you're looking at as Wyborn gets ahead of Coburn, and as they make the way through the left-hander here of turn number 2, Wyborn gaining the position. But I think there's more to this story than just some overtakes down the straight, and in fact we're going to have a very quick look back very shortly at what happened with Paul Coburn. So this was coming through turn number 13. It was the case. Well, it doesn't look as though there was contact or anything on those lines. It was the case that Favo got the move done into... Oh, goodness me, and this is what we came to. Well, there was something that did happen. Coburn had to put the brakes on hard because Wyborn, and I think that was also Mark Baker, involved in an incident. And looking a bit further earlier on in the proceedings, this was Mark Baker making his way through the corner. Now, Wyborn's at the head of this pack as they made their way through the corner. Well, Chris Keenan tapping the back of Wyborn and sending Wyborn into the path of Mark Baker, and then, well, that is how it all played out. So as they make the way through the corners right now, and we look back to live pictures, that explains why we've had that disruption in the midfield with the AM class and the change of places. But as they make their way around the circuit right now, we are also hearing that the Italian of Stefan Albanese has made a move on James Neva, and then he's run off circuit, or he's been repassed back. So it's the case that they are trading places, but Prouting is now ahead of Albanese as well. So it is the case that Prouting finding the positions and getting a move on as they make their way around into turn number 1 and down towards 2 once again. This being lap number 6 for these drivers right now as they head towards the end of the second third of this race, and as they make their way through, we're hearing that Foyle's had a bit of a moment. Indeed, Foyle off circuit there at turn number 2. He rejoins, but he joins all the way down in P10 overall, P9 in class, and Foyle having a moment there as he makes his way up towards turn number 4. The Crystal Autosport driver not happy, I would presume, with what has happened, and we will take a look back at what has happened to William Foyle. So making his way out to 1 down towards turn 2 now, came into the braking zone, and as he made his way in, I think the rear's going to go, or was there contact? And we could see Wiggins there on the inside. Now, was there contact between the two drivers? It's hard to tell, but it does look as though Wiggins went for the move, and Foyle on the outside in the end was a turn. Now, whether it was under his own capabilities or with contact with Wiggins, that's the should to take a look at, but Foyle now dropping it down the order, and in return Wiggins up into P4 overall as they make their way around the circuit. But as they do, we look a little bit further down the order once again, and Chris Keenan trying in that P19 position, and the AM driver P8 within this class trying to hunt down Paul Coburn right now. The two BMW drivers in equal machinery, but it is the case that Keenan trying to build that pressure at the Hungaroring circuit as he makes his way through turn number 9 once again. But as he does right now, I'm hearing a little bit further back, it is the case that we have seen a change of place between, oh goodness me, and Nathan Scott. They're going wide out turn number 5, and I think Liam Tack at this point will, in the rather fancied livery Williams Martini Racing Ferrari here, especially created by Mark Sykes Designs from what I'm hearing, and a new livery brought to tonight and all future rounds. I think it is the case that Liam Tack very happy with that livery, but in a quiet race right now down in P21, P9 in class. And I don't think he was expecting too much of this race when I caught up with him earlier on, and I think it was one of those situations where he's just looking to try and keep it safe and consistent. But as meanwhile we see Matthew Prouting here trying to hunt down now James Neve in the hunt for P7 overall, that's P6 in the Pro class, and as we ride on board here with Prouting as he hunts after the Castrol Honda Racing Ferrari 488 GT3 as they go charging up towards the braking zone for turn 4. And you can see Prouting getting very close. A very strong run out of turn 3, but that's the problem. Once you've left sector 1, it's so difficult to try and look for a move beyond turn number 3. And as they make the way out of 5 right now, all Prouting can do, the RP Motorsports Pro Am driver, he just needs to hug the back of the Ferrari in front of him and try and get James Neave to make a mistake. Alternatively, look for that move in the run down towards turn 1 on the next lap. He's running out of time, however. After this lap, there'll be 2 more laps remaining, we predict. And right now, I think Prouting has to be starting to think about where can he really close up under braking as he makes his way through turn number 10 and into 11. Into the right-hander he goes, and you can see building up as much momentum as possible. But is he going to be able to do it here? I don't think so. I think he's going to have to wait a little bit longer. As meanwhile, a bit further back, we are hearing that William Foyle all over the back of Stephan Albanese, and you can see behind there, that is Kelly from what is P25. He's a lap down. He can't technically unlap himself here unless he feels he's got an outright pace advantage. I think Albanese doing everything to back Foyle up right now as they make their way through turn 13 and into 14. And as they come through to go on to the penultimate lap, it is the case that these 2 battles, one being the battle for P8 in the Pro Class, the other being the battle for P6 in the Pro Class, are starting to build up even further. And you can see Foyle here all over the back of Albanese, who's going to go defensive into 1 early here. He knows that Foyle's got the overspeed, and as they make their way into the braking zone, he's going to make Foyle go the long way round. But because he can look for the cutback here, Foyle, and he does so, he immediately looks at that cutback. He will get the run out of the corner, but you can just see how strong that BMW M4 is on the exit. And with Albanese nailing that braking zone and that acceleration zone, no change between the 2, but he goes a little bit deep there into turn 2. This is going to bring Foyle even closer, but I don't think we're going to be seeing an advantage gained by Foyle to make a move here, because as they come out of 3, they are as they were going into 4. And at this point, I can imagine that Foyle right now will be trying to find a way to inch so close as to reach out and touch the back of that BMW through sector 2, because he will want to be as close as he was under braking into turn 2. He'll want to be that close emerging from turn number 14 at the end of this lap, because he's running out of time right now as he makes his way through the chicane. And likewise, James Neave at the moment holding off the fast charging Matthew Prouting behind him as we ride on board the gearbox here, looking backwards from James Neave as he makes his way out to 9. You can see Prouting really having to wrestle that BMW, but whilst he's having to wrestle it, is the case. I think Stephan Albanese going a little bit deep there through what was turn number 9 at the time as he's making his way down. You can definitely see how that pressure is building up as they make the way into the braking zone here for turn number 12. And I think Albanese now really struggling as our leaders are going onto the final lap very shortly. They're just emerging from the final corner to go onto our 9th and final lap. And it's the case, Foyle as close as he's ever going to be to try and get this move done coming to turn 1. He's got to nail this final corner. Can Foyle get it done? We ride on board here as he emerges from the corner as he makes it out to turn number 14. You can see Albanese getting a very poor exit there. A bit of oversteer as he made his way onto the exit curve. Foyle's going to be very close here. He's going to look for the move. He goes to the outside. Albanese goes defensive. And as they come under braking here in the battle for what is P8 in class, they make the way in, and Albanese parks it there on the apex. Literally dead stops the car, and Foyle finds a face on the BMW there. And as a result, as he flashes his lights, I think trying to now distract Albanese, it is the case he's not going to find a way through it. They both go a little bit deep under braking, and Albanese just puts in that BMW wherever Foyle wants to be as they make their way through turn number 3 and head up the hill once again. And now the only opportunity is either going to be a forced move as he makes his way up the hill into 4. He's going to try and go around the outside here for now. This is very brave to even dare go into the braking zone alongside, and you can see Albanese covering him off here, but Foyle now trying to get the elbows out and find a way to make this move happen on the final lap as they make their way through turn number 5 and up into 6, 7. They go into the chicane. Meanwhile, just ahead, I can tell you that James Neave feeling huge pressure from Prouting and also closed out to the back of Paul Williams as they make their way through turn number 9 here, and it's going to be very close between these drivers as they come towards the end of the lap as they make their way on down. Meanwhile, talking to drivers who are making their way on down, it is the case that as they make their way into turn number 13, well, you're looking at Dan Murray right now, the Altitude Esports driver, who after starting on the second row had the perfect start to the sprint race, jumped all the way up into the lead after turn 2, and he's never let go. And as he makes his way through the final corner here, it is going to be Dan Murray from Altitude Esports who takes the checkered flag in the sprint race at what is the Hungaroring for the win overall and the win in the Pro Class. Stephan Wessels comes home P2 overall with the win in the AM Class. A brilliant drive by the pair of them. Gareth Williams P3, Josh Williams P4, Michael Steele in the MP5, Paul Williams holds on to P6, James Neave holds on to P7 ahead of Prouting, Stephan Albanese holds off Williams brilliant foil in the end, with foil coming home in P10 overall, P9 in class. Nigel Stock completes our top 10 for the pro drives, and then Travis Linscome-Hatfield drives to another podium in the AM class there, P2 in the AM class in the sprint, ahead of Paul Scott, and then Elwin Sykes P14, that's P3 in the AM class, a podium for Elwin Sykes, he'll be very pleased with that one. And Davide Favo completes our top 15, he's our P4 finisher in the AM class, ahead of Jack Widebond here, who with that moment and what was turn at number 14 midway through the race, I think we'll be expecting to bounce back now in the feature. Chris Keenan behind him, and then Paul Colburn in P18, Stuart P. Taylor P19, and Mark Baker rounding off our top 20. And then it's Nathan J. Scott ahead of Liam Tack that completes our order to P22. And then Alistair Kirk will in the end get in the car back together as he makes his way through the final sequence of corners here. We do still have 2 more drives to finish this race, Alistair Kirk being one of them after that involvement in the opening lap incident, going through turn number 3 and in the wind up to 4, and Alistair Kirk will now know it's going to be a challenge to get the maximum possible points in the feature. And Darren Doherty meanwhile making his way down towards turn 13, the Altitude Esports driver here, he'll be looking to bounce back no doubt as he makes his way on through. Kosh Kelly finishing a lap down in the end in P25 along with Gareth Mills, and we had the retirements of Daniel Merchant and also the non-participation due to the race ban of Paul Walton. Otherwise, 26 out of our 27 starters making it to the checkered flag, and Darren Doherty there completing our formation on the lead lap for this race. Well, what a brilliant race, and indeed now as we get ready for what is the feature race, it's time, I think, for us to also get ready for some post-race interviews of our race winners. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back for our post-race interviews of our sprint race winners, and we'll be starting off with Dan Mori, our winner in the Pro Class. A great race, not too many overtakes to be fair. We saw the majority of the overtakes occur early on in the race, but it is the case, of course, the Hungaroring are known for its tight and twisty nature, and those overtakes come in at a premium. And one driver who made a brilliant pair of overtakes at the start, Dan Mori, of course. Let's hear from him. Hello, Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
That's brilliant, Dan. Well, firstly, congratulations on what was a brilliant drive to the win in the sprint in the Pro class. How does it feel to have taken the win in the sprint race?
Yeah, it's definitely a very good feeling. I definitely didn't feel like I had the pace to be right up there, but I just managed to get a good start. And then I kind of knew with Stephen behind me being an AM that he probably wasn't going to harass me too much. And then we kind of just stayed at our settled gap. Because I didn't really have the pace to run at the front. I knew Stephen was quicker than me, but it just looked like he was kind of happy to sit in P2. So.
Well, I do have to ask, with regards to that start, it was a monstrous start. You gained effectively what were 2 places in the run down towards turn 1, and then gained the lead off of Stephan Wessels overall, going through turn number 2. Just take us through, what was the secret to that start? Because you just came out of nowhere.
Um, I had kind of fallen a little bit back behind the last corner. So as I come round the last corner, I obviously had just as they checked up, it went to green, so I just managed to pull out of the little gap because I wasn't sure where the guy on my left was because I thought he was quite close, so I kind of like let him have the bit more space in that. So, but yeah, it seemed to work out quite well.
Well, it was a brilliant start, and from that point onwards, it looked as though things were in control with Stephan Wessels behind you. Just take us through, for the viewers, what's it like driving around this Hungaroring circuit when you're in the lead, knowing how tight it is, and when you've got a driver behind you, of course, who in a different class, on similar pace to yourself?
Yeah, so it's definitely a very technical track, but obviously with the temperatures as well being like 44 degrees or whatever, it was very slidey. But I kind of knew if I just kept it on the track, I didn't think I was going to have any issues from Stephen behind, but I'd already said to a couple of lads in the Discord that if anyone was going to make a move, that I simply wasn't going to fight it because there's no point trying to fight in temperatures like that. So.
Understandable. And now looking ahead to the feature race, of course, you'll be starting quite far back in the pro group, going into the 60-minute race. What's the plan?
Just kind of just take it easy and pick up and try and get some more good points, basically. Now I've got that win, basically, and just try and avoid what happened at Sebring because obviously picked up the win at Sebring and then the feature race didn't go my way. But so as long as I stay out of trouble, that's the main thing.
Well, we look forward to seeing you take to the circuit for the feature race, but until then, congratulations on the win in the sprint. A brilliant drive from yourself.
So thank you.
So hearing there from Dan Morey, very happy with his performance. I think a little bit surprised at just how much ground he gained at the start of the race, but he timed that start to perfection, and it meant that come the end of the opening couple of corners, he was in the lead and able to hold on to that lead for the rest of the race. But speaking from one winner to another, let's catch up with Stephan Wessels, our AM winner. Hello, Stephan. Can you hear me?
Other port, yeah, loud and clear.
Stephan, another win to go to your accolades so far in this series, but also an absolutely phenomenal qualifying lap. How does it feel to have taken the overall pole position at the Hungaroring and then gone on to convert that into an AM class win?
No, it's really cool. I do like this track. I think that's pretty clear from my times and stuff. I've always enjoyed it, especially in the GT3. So no, I'm super chuffed. I'm very happy. Stayed out of trouble. Had the pace whole race, and yeah, just had fun, eh?
Indeed, it did look as though you were having fun out of the circuit. I do have to ask, with regards to qualifying, what was going through your mind when you made that, well, what was effectively the penultimate lap of the session for yourself and you saw it top the timing sheets?
Well, to be honest, I knew I had that lap time in the car at that temps, so it was just about executing, and I didn't execute my first 2 attempts, so I was a bit annoyed with myself. So yeah, I was very happy to get that lap time done because that was the last chance. You know, there was nothing after that.
Oh, indeed, and then going into the sprint race, I should say, obviously qualifying well above your peers within the AM class. What was the plan? Because it looked as though it was quite tight in the run down to turn 1 between yourself and the pro drivers around you.
Yeah, so it's tricky. It's my first time I start in front in any race. So it was tricky. I didn't want to obviously brake too early and have that scenario of have pro drivers obviously a bit fast in the braking zone. So I just tried to brake as late as possible. Dan had me on the inside, and honestly, I wasn't going to attack him. I just tried to defend my line because I knew I had the pace. So I just wanted to find a little pocket where I could race in. And yeah, I had fun with Dan. I chased him a bit. I think I made him sweat a bit. But there's no point in sending one up the inside at any point. I mean, I'm not racing him, so. But it was fun making him sweat a bit.
Understandably so. And now looking ahead to the feature, of course, you'll be starting towards the back of the AM group. What's the plan for the 60-minute race?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be right at the back next to Baker.
Yes.
So honestly, all that I'm going to do is I'm going to wait it out for T1. First lap is going to be very relaxing. I'm not going to push it. And then I'm going to just try and take my time, I've got the pace for the race. So, I mean, the pro guys are going to be well out in front, so they're not going to be, how can I say, I'm not going to be battling with them like we normally do. So I'm just going to take my time and just try and execute.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you get up to in the feature race and wish you the best luck there. But until then, congratulations once again on a brilliant drive in the sprint race, and we look forward to seeing you in the feature.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Hearing there from Stephan Wessels, who's very happy with his performance in both qualifying and in the sprint to go on to take the win in the AM class. And indeed, there, when he said he does enjoy the Hungaroring circuit, it definitely does show through that qualifying session then going on into the sprint. But with our post-race interviews complete, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back in approximately 5 minutes' time at 8 to 9 for what is the build-up to the feature race. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Apologies for the extended delay. A technical issue did plague our race server, but we finally got that technical issue resolved after a number of fixes being implemented, and we are now back for the build-up to the feature race. And I can only apologise on the behalf of all of us here at NXTGEN Racing for keeping you waiting, but we really do appreciate your patience, and now your patience will be rewarded with the hour-long feature race here at the Hungaroring. Now, we believe due to those issues we are going to be seeing a slight change to the start of this race. I have been informed it is going to be a standing start rather than the intended rolling start. We'll wait to see whether that is the case when all of our drivers do filter round to line up on the grid. But we will be going racing in just under 3 minutes now, and indeed everything is on the line for a good number of drivers in this series, the iRacing GT3 Championship Season 2. We're focusing on Coach Dave Academy, Next Level Racing Lobby, or that's Lobby 2, sponsored by those two organisations, Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing, to whom we are very grateful to have them on board, and all of our drivers right now getting themselves set for a fast and furious strategic race, the feature, the 1 hour race. And to remind you, our drivers will need to pit over the course of this race. They will be required to make one mandatory pit stop in order to take on the fuel to take them to the end of the race. And that fuel is of course going to be critical to each and every driver because of the fact that some of them may opt to fuel save, others may opt to go all in with regards to fuel usage and go full attack. But regardless of what they choose to do, at the Hungaroring, qualifying was very important, as we saw in the sprint race, and now it's going to all be about the strategy in this feature race because it's so difficult to overtake, particularly in sector 2, as we've seen time and time again. So the run from turn 4 all the way through and to including turn number 11, and our drivers will now be up against it as they make their way around here for the 60-minute race. And we can see Paul Williams here, Team Tetra Rouge driver, making his way around, the pro driver here as he comes into the pits. In fact, perhaps getting acquainted with the pit entry sequence once again, just reminding himself of where the pit entry lines are and also where the pit limiter needs to be activated, where he cannot speed into the pits, otherwise he'll pick up a penalty. As we can see plenty more drivers making their way around right now. Alistair Kirk here as well, but our driver's now only 1.5 minutes away from going racing. And indeed, you can imagine that right now, as we see Matt Evans there in the Facebook chat, no problem at all, Matt. Indeed, we know these technical issues do happen. We appreciate you looking to get them fixed as soon as possible. But still, as our drivers make their way around, appreciate all the work you do, Matt. And I'm sure everybody takes part in this series. Indeed, all the spectators do appreciate all the hard work you do in order to run this series from top to bottom. As we see Jamie Dory here making his way through turn number 3. And Jamie Dory, the Barracuda with NXTGEN Racing driver here, participating in the feature race, not able to make it for the purposes of the sprint. Now, one driver, of course, who'll be feeling quite buoyant after his 3rd place finish in the AM class in the sprint race will be Elwyn Sykes, the privateer here from South Africa in the number 225 Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. Will be looking to try and marry that podium finish in the sprint race with another top 5, if not another podium finish in the feature. And you can see he's practicing his standing start procedure. A lot of drivers not used to standing starts, used to rolling starts in these GT3 machines, so it is definitely going to throw a spanner into the works for a good number of drivers, or a little bit of a conundrum for our drivers in terms of maximising that standing start. And well, with that in mind, Darren Doherty as well, the Irishman here from Altitude Esports, will be only too aware of that. And some of these cars are better launchers from a standing start than others. We are hearing that in particular the Lamborghini, a very tricky car, as we can see that right now Kosh Kelly parked in the pit and looking ready to go there. As we see a time is called on this final practice session as all of our drivers now come to the end of it. It is time for the gridding and the race, as we just wait for all of our drivers to make their way in. And let's take a look at a grid once again then. So it will be the case that this time around it will be William Fall and Jamie Dory line up on the front row. Behind them, Stuart P. Taylor and Paul Williams. James and Eve and Kosh Kelly there line up on the 3rd row. Paul Scott and Nigel Stock on the 4th row. Matthew Prouty and Stefan Albanese completing our top 10. Josh Wiggins and Michael Seal lining up on row number 6. Behind them will be Alistair Kirk and Dan Morey from Altitude Esports there. And behind them on the 8th row will be Gareth Williams and Paul Walton. Those are our pro drivers who take the first slots on the grid. Then the AMs will be started off by Jack Wybon and Travis Linscome-Hatfield, followed by Paul Coburn and Chris Keenan, completing our top 20. Then Liam Tack and Darren Doherty on the 11th row, Elwyn Sykes and Gareth Mills on the 12th row. And in our last set of rows, we'll have Davide Favo and Stephan Wessels on row number 13, and Mark Baker line up on row number 14. And I believe he is meant to have Paul Walton alongside him, but I can't see. Well, no, he's not meant to have Paul Walton alongside him. My apologies there, getting a little bit out of touch with our drivers' those. Paul Walton, of course, starting at the back of his group in the pros. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to go races. We look to the front. It's 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the feature race here at the Hungaroring in Lobby 2 as all of our drivers make the way off the standing start. Everybody successfully pulling away as they go charging down towards turn at number 1. But we can see in particular one driver getting a good start, and that one driver, of course, was William Foyle, but he's had Paul Williams go for the move on the inside very deep into the corner, and it's not worked out for Paul Williams as they now make their way on through, and Williams with that lunge but just a bit too late on the brakes. It instead drops to P3 as Kosh Kelly moves up to P2 here, but all of our drivers make it off that start line, albeit Jamie Dory having a poor start as he's further down the order, but as they all come concertina in through turn number 2. Oh, we've got a car into the wall, and that's Stephan Albanese into the wall there, and I believe we've also got a car with him, and that might be Stephan Wessels. We've got further contact. We've got a car on its roof, and goodness me, that looks as though, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is, well, I think that's Paul Scott on his roof there. How on earth did that happen? It looks as though Wiggins involved in that incident as well, as I try to get back up to speed, and Elwyn Sykes involved in that incident. But after what is the open half a lap, well, it's Foyle just making the break right now. Foyle with the pace as we're hearing Dan Morias jumps to the pits, as well as Elwyn Sykes and Paul Scott. Bit of chaos on the opening lap so far, as we see a bit further back there, James Neve battling with Matthew Prouting and also Nigel Stock getting ahead, but Prouting trying to go around the inside to outside here of what is turn 9 into 10. He's not going to find it too well here as he makes his way on through the corners, but he is going to attempt it, and as they make their way down towards turn number 12, it's side by side, but Neve falls back here, and behind them you can see Wyborn losing ground to Alistair Kirk here as the lead AM driver gives the place to the pro driver Alistair Kirk as they make their way through into turn number 13, and they come charging through turn number 13 and head towards the end of the lap right now, with turn number 14 awaiting them a little bit further back. We can see that Stephan Wessels working with Davide Favo here, and Favo giving up the position by the looks of things, with Wessels going around the outside. After one lap then, it is William Foyle leading by a gap of 3.5 seconds ahead of Paul Williams in P2. There's Michael Seal in P3, followed by Gareth Williams in P4. Gareth Williams looking for the move here on Seal as they come under, breaking into one. He can't quite find it. He has to wait for the opportunity. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock in P5, followed by Matthew Prouting in P6. Then we've got James Neve in P7, being chased by Alistair Kirk in P8. Then we've got our lead AM driver of Jack Wyborn in P9, followed by Chris Keenan in P10. But Keenan looking for the move here in the run down towards turn 2. He's going to go around the outside if he wants to achieve this. Now, can he get it done? He's going to for it, and as they make the way around, he'll go from outside to inside, but you can see already Wyborn able to get on the gas much earlier, and as a result hold the position. So Keenan stays in P10 for now, which has in Travis Linscome-Hatfield behind in P11, Darren Doherty in P12, then Liam Tack in P13, followed by Mark Baker in P14. Stephan Wessels looking for the move on Baker as they go up the hill into 4, and it's the case Wessels not able to find his way through for the time being. He stays in P15 for now. Davide Favo in P16, following Gareth Mills in P17. Then we've got Paul Coburn completing our top 18 with Kosh Kelly in P19 and Paul Walton at P20, but I believe Stephan Wessels still looking for the move on Baker as they go side by side into the chicane here, and Stephan Wessels getting it done. You can see as a result Davide Favo now also coming through as they go into the left-hander of turn number 8. Well, that's very brave from Wessels, and it looks as though with that move Favo's also capitalised. The South African drivers here put one over Mark Baker as he makes his way up behind them now into turn number 11. They come through the right-hander for the second time of asking, and as they come charging on through, in terms of drivers impacted at the start of this race, will both Paul Walton and Joshua Wiggins, the two RD Simsport drivers, really lost out massively with that incident, and Paul Scott, Dan Murray, Elwyn Sykes, and also what was Stuart Taylor, all having a difficult start to this race, and Dan Murray as well really hurt after Dan Murray took the win, of course, in the sprint race in the pro class. But right now, looking at further up our order, I can tell you that Matthew Prouting, well, he's chasing after Stock for the time being, but as he looks at the potential move here down to 1, he's still not close enough, as we've got drivers coming out of the pits there having repaired the cars, and you can see Prouting going for a very, very late move on the inside there, and I think he was half and half with regards to whether he went for it. He did look for it, and whilst we saw Stock go defensive there, it was the case, I think, Prouting really having to push the brakes on hard there to avoid the contact. Prouting right on the limit, trying to find a way to get past the Ford GT driver in front, and behind James Neve feeling that pressure from Alistair Kirk here as we ride on board with the Lamborghini Huracan driver chasing after James Neve as they go roaring up towards turn number 4. Now as they come into the braking zone for 4 here, it's a situation where I think Kurt is going to have to be quite patient and be thinking more about his strategy already here as they come through the right-hander at turn at number 5. And as they do, you can see Kurt getting a really good run here. This is going to be an opportunity. He's going to look to the inside, and Neve, they're not defending this one through the chicane. Recognising, I think, the fight's later in the race here. He doesn't need to fight this right now. We know Neve a smart driver with regards to place in the car, and instead just waiting for that opportunity later on in the race to potentially come back through strategy, but we'll wait and see how that plays out. But meanwhile, Prouting continuing to put that pressure on at P5 man Nigel Stott, the Ford GT, the lone Ford GT in this lobby, and indeed a unicorn in terms of the cars available here as he makes his way down into turn number 12. And as they come through the right-hander, you can see Prouting all over the back of Stock as they come up into turn number 13. Now, what can Stock do? Well, he's got the straight line acceleration, that Ford GT. The BMW M4 has the straight line top speed advantage by a small margin. With the gears they're using, it's not going to matter. There's contact between the two drivers there, with Prouting looking for the move on the inside, and the contact's in Stock with him off circuit, and Stock drops down the order, and so does Prouting. And now Neve, I think, being patient and not making contact with Kurt when the two went side by side into the chicane, will be probably smiling a little bit right now and thinking, that's right, drive it smart, don't make contact, and just keep it calm as they make their way down into turn number 1 once again here. But that contact is going to spell problems for both Stock and also Prouting. As meanwhile, a bit further up the road here, we can see it's the case that Seal right now chasing after Gareth Williams, and in return with Michael still getting that pursuit as Paul Williams at the head is back in P2 right now, really falling off our leader, and Williams having a difficult time coming out of 3. Gareth Williams is going to try and go around the outside of 4. This is going to be brave stuff, and we can see it's the case that Seal tries to come through with him, and the two drivers do go around the outside, and that is very, very brave. But to be fair to Paul Williams, he was obliging as though he knew the two drivers were going to try it around the outside. Brilliant stuff from these three, all 3 of them making it through turn number 4, and it goes to show you can go too wide through the corners where they say you can only take one car at a time. But my goodness, that was very, very close, and you can see that Seal is literally chomping at the bit here to chase after that win, if not a podium opportunity. He will know, Michael Seal, the Igneo Motorsport driver, that this is a huge chance with the fact that he's already up into P3, he's chasing Gareth Williams down, and with foil only 4.5 seconds up the road, and we would suspect that Williams, i.e. Gareth Williams, is going to reel foil in as time goes on right now. We'll have to wait to see what happens. But meanwhile, further back, we can see Travis Linscome-Hatfield here battling side by side with Darren Doherty as they make their way out to turn number 11 and coming down in towards 12. It's going to be the case. It's a reverse Moses manoeuvre on Linscome-Hatfield, where we could see there Stephan Wessels made the move, and also Darren Doherty almost came off. He's still there, but Doherty really losing out, and Hatfield in the end caught by surprise by the looks of things by the fast charging Stephan Wessels. As we can see, it's the case that now Davide Favo coming through and Mark Baker. But meanwhile, Darren Doherty really going slowly at this point. Is there a problem with the car? Because the Altitude Esports driver here losing effectively what was 4 places in the space of 3 corners, and now that does look as though there's surely got to be something wrong. It's not a happy place in that car, or if it is the case it's just not working out well. But you can see here Davide Favo looking for the move versus Wes Linscombe-Hatfield as they come out to 1 and into the run to 2, and it is the case right now the South African drivers in this series really seem to be enjoying Hungaroring here, and well, it's the case that Favo, but also Stephan Wessels charging through the field. But unfortunately, our third South African driver of what is Elwin Sykes not having a good day at the office. So as they make their way through the corner, Favo getting it wrong there and clipping Mark Baker and taking him to the grass. And you can see Favo letting Baker take that inside line into 4 there, and I think Favo just getting it wrong on exit as he tried to stabilise the car, making that contact. But oh goodness me, and Favo coming across the circuit there and losing control of the car. And Favo, where it was going very well, it's now not going so well as he parks it up there and I think waits to rejoin once all the traffic comes on through. And that is a very unfortunate day as we can see Nigel Stock here giving up pursuit after Gareth Mills, after that contact between himself and Prouting saw him drop all the way down the order. But meanwhile, one driver who's making his way up the order is our P2 man in the AM Championship. He's come from the back of the AM field and he's almost to the front of it. He's only got 2 more drivers ahead of him, and it starts off with Jack Wyborn as he looks to the move of Stephan Wessels into turn 12, and Wyborn not fighting this this one too hard. He's going to keep the Ferrari there on the outside. The two Ferrari drivers going side by side here. Wessels, of course, in the red-black Ferrari versus Wyborn in the dedicated red Ferrari, running the purest Ferrari colours, of course, in terms of the Ferrari F1 racing team. And as they make their way through the right hand there, turn 14, Scuderia Ferrari is the team I'm thinking of, the full name of the F1 team. It is the case as they make their way out of the final corner. They go on to another lap here, and in the opening 5 laps of this race, there has been drama. There's also been some huge overtakes, and indeed the Hungaroring giving us some great battling opportunities. As we can see here, Linscome-Hatfield looking for the move on Wyborn, and Wyborn giving him the space on the inside. But you can see the natural nature of the turn 1 hairpin is it's deceiving, it's not symmetrical. And whilst Linscome-Hatfield looked for it, he made such a tight entry to the apex, it means he lost out in the acceleration stakes versus Wyborn. But Wyborn feeding that pressure right now as they make their way out to 2 and down towards 3. They come through the right-hander here, and the American trying to build that pressure as much as he possibly can as they come charging all the way through the corners. And as they make their way through the left-hander here, turn number 4, Linscome-Hatfield just waiting for that opportunity once again as he comes on through. And we can see there in the Facebook chat, Katie Eames wishing our drivers the best of luck. Not able to stay awake until the end of the race due to the late start. It's completely understandable, Katie, but we do appreciate you tuning in. Indeed, to all of you still tuning in with us, we do really appreciate you supporting things, and do let me know who you're rooting for if you do have the opportunity to put a message into one of the chats right now. Of course, this broadcast on YouTube, Twitch, and also Facebook, and we can see all 3 chats, and well, feel free to pop us a message if you want to do so. But meanwhile, looking further up the field, we can see the pro drivers here of Alistair Kirk putting that pressure onto Paul Williams right now as he tries to find a way into this. But the question, of course, for Wes Alistair Kirk is, can he get the move done soon? Because if he can't, he's going to be losing out compared to the top 3. As we can see, Kirk there flashing his lights. Now, is that a flash of lights to say I'm not going to look for the move? Is it a distraction? Is it deceit? We're not 100% sure. But what we can say is that the TGC racing driver all over the back of the Ferrari, excuse me, I think that was a signal to say I'm not going to look for the move this time, I'm not close enough. Indeed, some drivers do that, of course, because they don't want the driver ahead of them to go too defensive here. So that's why sometimes you'll see that Kirk's flashing his lights to Paul Williams. He's trying to give a message, I think, to Paul Williams to say, look, do not defend corners. You do not need to defend versus me for the time being. But I'll tell you one driver who did need to defend, it is a form of what was Jack Wyborn, as Wyborn has lost the place to Linscome-Hatfield, and now he's going to be in a battle here side by side with what is Darren Doherty through turn number 2, and Doherty going for the cutback here. He will look for it coming through 3 and up into 4. Wyborn having to try and hold that ground as much as humanly possible as they come roaring up the hill towards turn number 4. And we're hearing that Paul Williams has been passed by Alistair Kirk. But first, what we're going to do, we're going to take a look back at the move that Linscome-Hatfield made on Wyborn for what was at the time P9 or P3 in the AM class. So this, I think, was a traditional move into turn 1, but Linscome-Hatfield coming from quite far back there, went heavy on the brakes. In fact, contact there with Wyborn, so it was quite a late break. The contact made was what knocked Wyborn off pace, and as a result caused him to come into that side-by-side with Darren Doherty, and that explains what we then subsequently saw. But right now, as we look back to live picture, you see Wyborn holding off Darren Doherty for the time being, and instead it is Mark Baker, our championship leader in the AM class, who is trying to catch up to and get past Darren Doherty here. And we do know that these two drivers, of course, great racing drivers as individuals, and also have a lot of respect for one another. And Mark Baker looking for that potential move right now as he makes his way through 12 and into 13. I think it's going to come a little bit later right now. It's not going to come at the end of this lap, but may it come down into turn 1 as our drivers make their way through. Well, I don't think he's quite close enough to go for it, Baker. But then again, if he gets a good run through turn number 14, he's looking for it here. And you can see he's had a very nice tight exit line. And as he makes his way out the corner, he's 3.5 tenths back. Could this be an opportunity for Baker? As you can see, Darren Doherty trying to follow the toe there of Jack Wyborn. Doherty is wary of the fact that in this Ferrari train that makes its way down towards turn number 1 with the Ford GT of Nigel Stock behind it, it is the case the 3 Ferraris, and Mark Baker does not want to be the rearmost of those Ferraris anymore as they come on through. But it's the case, no gain this time. As we look a little bit further up the road to Alistair Kirk, who has got past Paul Williams. You can see Paul Williams in the rear of your picture, who's now got James Neve chasing after him. And how was that pass made only a lap ago? Well, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. So, not where we'd expect the pass to be made, in fact, although I think Paul Williams putting the brakes on early there and letting Alistair Kirk go. Now, I don't think that was a slowdown. I think Paul Williams may have intentionally there let Alistair Kirk go because perhaps he was worried about losing time to his fellow pro driver. And one of the things as well some drivers may do, and if our interpretation is correct, Paul Williams may think that he's battling for P5 with James Neave, so in his mind he'll be thinking, right, I don't need to battle Kirk at this point in the race because I'm only costing myself time. And that's sometimes what drivers will do. They're cognizant of the fact they're not in the same race as the faster drivers necessarily, and particularly this early on into the 1 hour race. We're not even 15 minutes in. He would have lost a lot of time trying to battle with Alistair Kirk. It would be great entertainment for us, but it may not be the most entertaining option for the driver in terms of the points they get in this race. But talking about trying to gain an entertainment, it is the case that Mark Baker right now will be feeling the opportunity to try and get a move down on Darren Doherty here, as we ride on board with the rearmost of our three Ferrari drivers right now. He's very close to back of Darren Doherty coming into turn 13, but you can see the difference in approaches here for the three drivers. Jack Wyborn trying to take a more natural line to these corners as he's on a qualifying lap. Darren Doherty somewhere in between, and then it's the case that Mark Baker really trying to point that Ferrari into the corners here. He's trying to send a message to Doherty, look, you've got to get a move on, because if not, I am going to take that place off you, and I will put my Ferrari where you do not like it, which is right up the inside. And as they make their way down towards turn 1 right now, breaking that 100 metre board, of course, it's a situation, oh goodness me, and Baker so late on the brakes, they're almost tapping the back of Doherty. And I must be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm sat behind a TV screen right now, but it's the case, I was starting to flinch a little in the commentary box because that was very close to tapping the back, and my goodness, that's the limit these guys are driving on right now to try and gain. As you can see, Wyborn getting all out of shape, they're coming out of 2 into 3, just not able to transition the weight of the car from the right side of the circuit to the left hand side as they come charging up the hill and into 4. We are hearing that Chris Keenan has dropped down the, oh goodness me, and that's Chris Keenan into the sky, and Mark Baker involved in that incident as well. What on earth has happened there? Because Chris Keenan across the road and Wyborn connected as a result of it, and that is a disaster for so many drivers. And the one driver who's benefited from this more than anybody else right now, well, Stephan Wessels, who's taken the lead of the AM class, with Linscome-Hatfield also following behind him right now. And then it is, well, it's the case that Gareth Mills in P3 and Darren Doherty, well, he managed to navigate all of that without issue, and that, I think, for Darren Doherty is right now a case of feeling very content, although he's got Favo behind him, and Favo has come through as a result of this as well. I think Darren Doherty was involved in all of that. It was not as though he got out of it scratch-free, but that was a huge incident, and we have heard that it is the case that Chris Keenan has jumped to the pits, and also Mark Baker has jumped to the pits. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock was also involved in that. We're going to take a look back very shortly at what exactly happened, but that was a huge incident. In fact, we're going to get the replay now. So this was Chris Keenan only moments ago making its way up towards turn number 4. As he went into left hand here, is the rear of the car going to jut out on the curb? It does. He goes into the wall. The car goes for a spin, and then as he sat in the middle, was slightly off circuit, he reverses into the middle of the road, and that is what led to the contact there. And as he went through into the stratosphere, it was the case that everybody else involved in that major incident, and my goodness, I think Keenan will definitely be getting a word with the stewards with regards to reversing back on circuit as we look back to live pictures right now, because that triggered a multi-car incident, and we saw it from the perspective of Mark Baker, and then from the exterior cameras of Chris Keenan, and that was very unfortunate. Unfortunately, of course, it's in the simulator, so you can imagine if that was the real world, we may have to red flag the race, but not so here. But it has definitely upset the apple cart for a number of drivers who were running on good pace. But speaking of drivers right now who will be focusing on regaining positions as a result of everything that's happened, Matthew Prouting right now, he's behind Kosh Kelly. He's in P11 is Prouting, and this is the battle effectively for P7 in the pro class as they make their way through at the turn 6-7 chicane once again. Now, with just over the first quarter of this race complete, and with everything that's happened, we are going to also try and take a look back at what happened on the opening lap at turn 3, where we did have what was Paul Scott on the roof of his car. He was turned upside down in the run through the opening corner, and hopefully we will be able to bring you what happened there. But it is the case that right now Prouting trying to put that pressure on Kosh Kelly as they make their way through the final sequence of corners here, through 12 through to 14, and he's all over the back of the Lamborghini Huracan driver, who we incorrectly said drove a BMW M4 earlier during the reference lap, and I do apologise for that, but it is the case that right now the Lamborghini Huracan feeling that pressure from the BMW behind it as they make their way up through turn number 14 as they come on through. Can Prouting stay close? He's very close here, Prouting. In fact, he's close enough to look at the potential move as we ride on board here with Prouting, but you can see emerging from the corner the Huracan having that good acceleration, and as they make their way down towards the braking zone here for turn number 1, it's no change at the moment, but Prouting trying to outbrake Kelly into the corner. In fact, Prouting massively gaining under braking there and really staying nice and compact to the back of that Lamborghini. He is not giving Kelly any breathing room whatsoever, and this is smart driving from Prouting. His idea is he wants to be so close as to make it uncomfortable for Kelly. He wants Kelly to know that if he makes even a mild mistake and a small inch of mistake, he's going to be there to capitalise. They've got Gareth Mills ahead of them, the AM driver in P9 in track position ahead, and he's P3 in the AM class here. And I think Mills will be looking to move out of the way soon because he'll be very aware of the fact he's got 2 pro drivers who are trying to come on through, and I'm sure Kelly would love to put Mills between himself and Prouting in order to gain some space, but will that be the case as they make their way through the chicane? You can see as they come through the very tight section of the circuit, sector 2 right now, it is the case that there's going to be no change for the time being. But speaking of change, it is the case that meanwhile in the battle for P3, we've got it very close between Sil and Kirk as they make their way into turn number 14. There's no way through this time, but you can see Kirk trying to go deep into the corner here to get the best possible exit, best possible traction coming out of the hairpin. And as they make their way across that timeline, you can see Kirk flashing his lights here, doing what he did with Paul Williams. Now, is this a message to say he's not going to go for the move? He's very close as they come down to the braking zone. He's looking to the inside, and Sil there goes onto that natural wide racing line, and Kirk moves down the inside to take the position for P3. A classic move into turn 1 and still not fighting it too hard, but you can see Michael still looking to that inside, now going to the outside here. It's the case the Porsche driver's waiting to come back into 2, and he's trying to make Kirk go deep into the corner, but Kirk unfazed by the antics of the Porsche driver and trying to get him to make a mistake, and instead they both continue as they are up towards turn number 4. Meanwhile, I'm hearing that Gareth Williams has passed William Foyle on circuit, and whilst we won't be able to bring you the incident that happened at turn number 3 on replay, we will be able to bring you what the pass was for the lead only moments ago, and here it is. So making their way out to turn 3, you can see Foyle they're getting it very wrong on the exit of 3, so it wasn't a pass made up into 4 in terms of Williams getting alongside. It's the case that Foyle making a mistake and losing out as a result of it. So as a result of that is the case we've now got Gareth Williams leading this race by 7/10 of a second ahead of William Foyle, but we do know Foyle got quite a bit of pace under the hood of that Audi. Can he bring this back a little bit later on? We'll have to wait and see, as meanwhile we are hearing that Matthew Prouting has found a way past Kosh Kelly, and that happened at the start of this lap, as we can see the drivers making their way through the chicane. As they come through, Gareth Mills behind them as well, so they've navigated past Gareth Mills as well, as we are hearing what has happened to William Foyle. He's had a moment somewhere else on the circuit, or has he? We're not 100% sure what has happened, but we have got it listed that William Foyle had, well, it's an off-circuit that Williams had just coming out the corner, so as a result, as he rejoins, that's why Alistair Kirk and Sil are so close to the back of him now, as they make their way down towards turn number 1. The gap between Foyle and Kirk behind, now only 9/10 of a second, and Foyle, the Crest Autosport driver, be very wary of that as the TGC man tries to hunt him down as they make their way through the opening corner once more. But as they come roaring on down right now, it is a situation where our field has opened up to a degree. It is the natural course around here at Hungaroring that the field will open up as time goes on, but it's plenty of opportunities for overtakes through strategy and also through some late moves later on in the race. As we look at James Neve right now, who in P6 is at the back of the lead Pro Pack as he makes his way here down through turn number 3, and the Castrol Mugen liveried Ferrari, of course, a very snatching livery, as we did see a number of you comment in the YouTube chat in particular earlier on whilst we were in the extended break, and it is the case that Neve right now making that livery and that Ferrari dance around the Hungaroring circuit. He goes a little bit deep there into 5. He won't want to do that too much because he'll start to fall away from Williams. And he's got Stephan Wessels now closing up behind him, but meanwhile, talking about closing up, Alistair Kirk here, a little bit further up the lap, is making his way through turn number 9 right now, really hunting down Foyle here as they make their way through turn number 10 and into 11. Now Kirk, we know, very collected around here, and he knows where to go for the moves, but where is he going to size this one up? That is the big question, of course. What I would say, if he's going to go for it anywhere, it's likely to be down into turn number 1 with his classic flash the lights and then look for the move as he makes his way into turn number 13. And it's the case Foyle going a bit deep, and it does look as though William Foyle struggling a little bit with the tyres on this Audi as the time is going on. We look back from the gearbox of William Foyle right now, and as he makes his way through, you can see the difference in lines there, whereby Foyle took the symmetric line, but he was a little bit wide of apex. Meanwhile, Kirk again going for that deep into tight exit line, but you can see that it's the case that this time Kirk far too far back to look for a move, unless he's going to lunge it from 4 attempts back, but to do so here would require Foyle to leave the door open and also open the steering on exit, and you can see there's no such potential lunge as they make their way out of 1 and down towards 2. They continue on as they were, and Michael Seal just in the rear of the picture there, just looking on as we can see Foyle going a bit deep into turn number 2, but he will bring it back together to make the nice natural flowing line through at turn number 3 as he comes through the right-hander. As they come through, these drivers right now, the closest drivers out on circuit in terms of battling for position, and we are waiting to see how the rest of the strategy plays out in the meantime as all our drivers continue on through. But one driver who really suffered as a result of the instance earlier in the race, Paul Walton right now, our championship leader going into this round in the Pro Championship, and indeed we are expecting that he's going to drop down the standings to Gareth Williams come the end of today. It has not worked out for Walton so far, although we will have to wait and see how he potentially recovers this race. He's down in P16 right now, P11 in the Pro class, and trying to hunt down Darren Doherty, who is 4.1 seconds up the road to him. The AM driver, of course, will not be a battle for a class position, but it will be an overtake which will help him move up the order. It will help Paul Walton move up the order and head towards what is the first of a top 10 placement in the Pro class come the end of this race. But as he makes his way around right now, we look a little bit further down the road, and I can tell you that at this point in time, Chris Keenan has just been passed by what is Mark Baker and is falling backwards from his fellow AM driver. As you can see, between the two of them, that is Wiggins, that is Joshua Wiggins, who is currently in P13 overall, and Joshua Wiggins P9 in the Pro class. And the RD Simsport team really trying to recover this race now after both drivers heavily impacted on the opening lap. It did not go well for either of them, and well, right now it's all about damage control here at Hungaroring. And indeed, meanwhile, we look to see that we're hearing that Liam Tack is into the pits from what was P18. Alternatively, you could classify that as P6 in class. And meanwhile, we can see Alistair Kirk here looking again for that move versus Foyle, and this time a bit closer going into 2. And I can definitely tell you that Foyle right now, if he wasn't looking in his rearview mirror, he will be now, because he will see the faceful of Alistair Kirk trying to look for that move, trying to bait out an opportunity as they come through 4 and up into 5. Now, he's not really going to have an opportunity here unless Foyle gets it wrong through the turn 5 hairpin. But as they come out of the corner and head out towards the chicane of 6-7, you can see Foyle being reeled in, and Michael still not close enough to really capitalise right now. He is the best part of 1.5 seconds back in the rear of your picture as our drivers come through the sequence of corners. But what does this really mean for Michael Still? Well, he needs to be a bit closer and hope that Foyle does drive a bit more defensively and pushes Kirk backwards towards him, because it could be a huge opportunity. So we're hearing that Joshua Wiggins into the pits after 26 minutes for his scheduled stop. He's already been into the pits once as far as I'm aware, and that is due to damage picked up on the car, but it is the case that he's in for that scheduled stop. As meanwhile, you can see Alistair Kirk giving that pursuit still of William Foyle on your central screen as they make their way through the left-hander at turn number 13. As they come through in the meantime, it is the case these drivers still at the closest out on circuit, as Wiggins still making that pit stop. And a little bit further down the order, I'm hearing that Chris Keenan has lost that position to Liam Tack. And in fact, I think Chris Keenan's made a mistake somewhere out on circuit. But where is Liam Tack? I hear you ask. The British driver here in the Martini Racing Ferrari. Well, he's got it wrong there on the chicane. And I did catch up with Liam Tack in the build-up to tonight's races, and he just wanted to keep it out of the wall. And well, he's not quite been able to do that here in the feature races. We just caught him mating with the wall, which is a bit unfortunate, but still driving on. He's got the drivers coming on through, and that's Darren Doherty coming through, and behind him, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, as we look at Darren Doherty, that is, well, it's the case that he's got Walton there as well as they make their way on through, and ahead of him is Jamie Dory. But meanwhile, we look from here to further up the road, and you can see it's the case that Alistair Kirk still tucked in behind Foyle. No change between these two at this point. They've been like this for a couple of laps now. No changes at this point in time. But you can see Alistair Kirk now looking to explore other extremities of the corner. So he's trying to find a way to get that natural advantage over Foyle. Foyle proving to be a bit difficult here. These two cars, of course, powered by the same Audi V10 engine as they make their way through the chicane. Of course, the Lamborghini Huracan represented by the Italian manufacturer, not flying under the German manufacturer flag of Audi. It is the case that they're two distinct manufacturers and two distinct cars as a result. The Audi perhaps being the most dicey of the cars here available to our drivers within the GT3 Championship. The Huracan being a bit more of a stable car, but at the same time, when that Audi is exploited to its maximum, we do know that it can be very fast at each and every circuit, and Foyle demonstrating that right now, being one of only 2 Audi drivers in the field tonight as they come through the corners. Now, as they make their way around right now, and we can see there Paul Walton, senior, in the YouTube chat, wishing his son the very best in the race. And we can see here the situation right now. Paul Walton making his way down through turn number 3 and trying to recover this race as rapidly as possible after that disastrous start as he makes his way on through. And further in the chat, we can also see Dan Remix V9 in the Twitch chat there, saying Dan Mori here had nowhere to go, which is a shame. Indeed, Dan, that was very unfortunate. We're sorry to hear that you've retired from the race. And speaking of retirements, ladies and gentlemen, we are so far have had 3 retirements in this race. We've lost Paul Colburn, Dan Murray and Stuart Taylor, where we lost Paul Colburn and Dan Murray from the instant on the open lap, and I think Stuart Taylor was also involved in that, although I'm not 100% sure. I can't quite confirm that, but we've lost 2 drivers out of our 27 starters. But right now we can see it is still the case that Kirk trying to hunt down Foyle. No change between these two, but I can see one battle that is gradually coming together, and it is the case the 2 drivers gradually closing the distance between one another. It is right now, we can see that it's going to be Matthew Prouting here, who we're looking at in P9. He is closing up to the back of Linscombe-Hatfield, and Prouting, of course, P9 overall, P7 in the Pro class. He's trying to close up gradually to James Neve. But James Neve, to give you an idea, is the best part of what is 20 seconds up the road. So Prouting right now putting in as many laps as he possibly can. He is one of our faster drivers around here, although to be fair to him, all of our leaders are lapping in the high 46s, whereas Prouting is lapping in the low 47s. So Prouting not really gaining on the leaders too much. The only exception to that would be Michael Seal, who's lapping in the low 47s with Prouting as they make their way through the corners. And as we can see there in the chat, we can see Greg B there not happy with regards to what happened with regards to Chris Keenan, indeed triggering off that incident coming out of turn 4 and into 5. And whilst it was one of those major incidents, indeed I think the shoes are going to come down very hard on that one with Keenan, because that did lead to a lot of drivers being involved in a huge moment. But meanwhile, speaking of huge moments, this could be huge for the race. It's Alistair Kirk into the pits here from what was at the time P3. He hasn't been able to get the pass done on circuit. He's decided enough's enough, we're bringing the car in, and now it's going to be the case. Will we see a reaction from Foyle here? Because think about it now, the Crest Autosport driver, he's got to play this one of 2 ways. He's either got to react immediately and essentially pit at the end of this lap to guarantee that he comes out ahead of Kirk, assuming they're going to spend equal time in the pits. Alternatively, does Foyle go on to the end and hope that Kirk is held up in traffic? Well, where has Alistair Kirk come out of the pits, I hear you ask? He's come out behind Matthew Prouting, and in fact this is not ideal for Kirk, because he'll get those tyres back up to temperature. It doesn't look as though he's changed the tyres on that car, given how quick he was in the pits, and the team serviced the car very quickly. He's just put the fuel in, and now with 29 minutes to go, he's got to find a way to close up to the leaders here. Of course, they've yet to pit. He is one of our first drivers to pit, is Alistair Kirk. In fact, he's our lead driver who's made their scheduled stop, and the first task is going to be to find a way past Matthew Prouting, unless of course Prouting comes into the pits soon, but we will wait and see whether that is going to be the case as he makes his way on through the corners. But meanwhile, we can also see Titan Taylor there in the Twitch chat, and that is Stuart Taylor saying his PC went into power cycling mode, and that's why I'm out. And I'm sorry to hear that, Stuart, but I do hope we see you again next time out at what is round number 6. It was good to see you join us out on the circuit today for the sprint race. It's unfortunate you're out, but we hope we are going to be back for round number 6, as we see from yourself, from yourself as a TGC racing driver to one of your colleagues, and that is Alistair Kirk here, who right now trying to make that charge and hunt down what is that opportunity to come home in a potential P2 within the Pro Championship class, as we see him making his way through turn number 12 right now, and right still behind Prouting all the same as he comes through the right into left hand sequence. As he makes his way on through a bit further up the road, I can tell you that after what was, it seemed as though it was quite some time where he fell backwards, Paul Williams actually closing up to Silver right now, and well, Williams lapping in the mid to low 46s, whereas Michael still stuck in the mid 47s, and we could see there briefly, I don't know if you guys and girls saw that, just the carbon ceramic discs on the rear of Michael Sil's car glowing red there, and I think Sil is struggling with brake temperatures right now, because he is losing out a massive amount of time time. And as we ride on board here with the Ferrari driver who is hunting down the P3 man ahead of him right now, you can see Sil all over the road there. The Ignium Motorsport driver having a difficult day, and this will be encouragement for the Team Tetra Rouge driver in terms of closing up here after dropping behind Sil, behind Vol, behind Williams early on in the race. He will now have an opportunity, and could we potentially see here Paul Williams look for a major blow? Could he try and pick up what would be effectively, if things were to finish based on the strategy prediction right now, this could be a P4 opportunity for Williams as he makes his way through the second sector hunting down Michael Sil. Can Sil get the Porsche's brakes back under control? Can he get them cooled down again, or has Sil gone too far here as they make their way into turn number 12? It doesn't look as though the Ignium Motorsport driver's having trouble in the latter half of the lap, but definitely through turn number 5 we saw how deep he went under braking, as meanwhile we are hearing a bit further down the road it's Kosh Kenny who's found a way past Alistair Kirk. And where's Alistair Kirk? Well, he's had a moment, I think, because he's rejoined the circuit. We're hearing what has happened to Alistair Kirk. Well, this was only moments ago in the run through the chicane. Now, does he go too high on the curve there? He clips the curve, but nothing major. It must have been into turn number 8, and he lost the rear end there under braking and into the wall, hitting it sideways. That won't be major damage to the car, but Alistair Kirk pushing hard, and I think that could really spell a huge upset to his race right now. As meanwhile, Linscome-Hatfield is into the pits from P2 in the AM class, P7 overall. That will not be a major change based on the current trajectories of the AM class drivers, but meanwhile, we can see that Paul Walton finding his way past Darren Doherty here, and the RD Simsport driver, he's made his schedule well, no, my apologies, it's not him who's made his schedule stop, it's his teammate Joshua Wiggins who's made the schedule stop. We believe Walton has still got to make a pit stop, but Walton on a mission here as he charges around the circuit right now. In terms of his pace, he's lapping in the low 47s. He is moving towards the head or the tip of the pace in the pro class here, albeit the fastest pace being demonstrated is Gareth Williams, our race leader, who currently is lapping in the mid 46s. The last lap 46.4. But meanwhile, as we look further up the road, we can see that William Foyle's had a moment as well, because Foyle has now got Michael Sil all over the back of him here, and it is erupting once again as we ride on board the gearbox of William Foyle as he makes his way through turn number 10 and into 11. And the Crest Autosport driver, who was driving a pretty much a rhythmic race by the looks of things, to hold on to P2, and I'm not sure if he's got the message about what's happened to Alistair Kirk yet, but if he had the message, well, that one mistake could now bring him back into a situation where him and Kirk will be out on circuit together once the pit stop's made. But I think it is the case that a number of drivers struggling with temperatures around here as they make their way around onto another lap, and we can see Foyle just coming to the end of his current lap, coming to the end of lap number 20 as he makes his way out to the final corner, still not able to capitalise as Paul Williams is into the pits here. Now, was this the right thing to do for Paul Williams? That will be the big question that's on our minds, because he's pitted, I think, to get out of the traffic sequence of what is Sil and Foyle ahead of him. But is it too early? Was he in the better place being behind them? We will only find out in due course. Meanwhile, where is Alistair Kirk in all this? That's the big question. How much has that incident cost him in terms of time? Well, he makes his way through turn at number 13 and into 14 right now. Paul Williams currently in his pit box. They're servicing the car, but meanwhile Alistair Kirk comes through the final corner as Gareth Mills is also into the pits, and as he makes his way out of the final corner, Alistair Kirk, we can see Paul Williams has come down off the jacks. And well, as he makes his way on down here, Paul Williams, well, he's making his way out the pit lane. It's a case that Paul Williams has emerged ahead of what is Alistair Kirk here. As you can see, Alistair Kirk is 2 seconds back, and he will now charge, and that is how much time Alistair Kirk has lost from making that one mistake under braking into turn number 8. That is a huge cost, and Paul Williams gaining from it now. Now, can he break away? Alternatively, just keep Kirk behind him for the remainder of this race. There's 23 minutes to go by the time Paul Williams reaches the tip of the run up towards turn number 4. Can he hold Kirk behind him, or will Alistair Kirk come on through? That will be the big challenge as he makes his way around and these pit stops continue to come in. But the big question that some of you will be asking, I definitely am, is what happened to William Foyle moments ago? Well, here it is. This is what happened to our P2 driver on the previous lap. So he was making his way at the time up into turn number 4, and he made his way through the corner, very steady through 4 into 5, and he just locked up under braking and got off to the runoff area there. And thankfully, with such a large runoff area, when he rejoined just ahead of Michael Sil. That explains what we then saw subsequently, and Sil looked to the move, to be fair, going into the chicane, but he wasn't close enough, and Sil deciding in the end not to try and push for it, because, well, the drivers behind him, I think he was very wary of the fact that if he went for the move, it could have erupted started and led to him losing some potential places. As meanwhile, we're hearing that James Neve into the pits there, and as a result now James Neve in from what was at the time P4 in this race, P4 overall and P4 in the Pro class, and he will now be getting his service done and out of the way as Kosh Kelly also into the pits, and this will start to release drivers, and one driver who will be absolutely joyful he's been released is Paul Williams. He wasn't quite close enough to feel the effects of the dirty F on the back of Kelly's car, but indeed Paul Williams was getting closer and closer, and now the Team Tetra Rouge driver goes on to another lap with Alistair Kirk pursuing. That last lap, Alistair Kirk was able to bring the gap down by 8 tenths of a second. Alistair Kirk is flying once again, with him just setting a 46.5. It's definitely unfinished business for Alistair Kirk. He does not see this race as over for him. He is going all in to try and come back towards the podium. It is going to be one big effort, but if he can pull this off, it will be a huge recovery drive as our drivers make their way on through. Meanwhile, whereas Neve returns to the circuit, he's rejoining P8 overall, that's P7 in class, and we've got David Father and Travis Linscome-Hatfield between himself and his pursuer Kosh Kelly. And Kosh Kelly, to give you an idea, the Englishman here making his way out of turn number 1. As they make their way around through what is the next lap of this race for them, as they come towards the end of the opening 40 minutes. This 1 hour race is one of those situations, I think, whereby Kelly will now be focusing more on keeping things together as much as he possibly can, rather than pushing too hard at this point. It's a good run so far, but he will have to be aware of the fact he's got Paul Walton, who's 7 seconds behind. But we are wondering if Walton has got another stop on the schedule here, his actual schedule stop for the fuel. We'll have to wait and see. We do know that our drivers can take their cars to roughly about 45 minutes into this race at most, depending on how much fuel saving they're doing. But that starting fuel load does force a pit stop at some point in this race. They can't just get away with not pitting. But meanwhile, we can see Joshua Wiggins, meanwhile, the pro driver here, he's got past Stephan Albanese. And Stephan Albanese, as he makes his way out of the pits here, will emerge ahead of Paul Scott quite significantly. As you can see, Paul Scott in the rear of the picture briefly, as we do look to the Englishman, the Britishman, as he makes his way down into turn number 1. But no change between these drivers for the time being. But I can tell you right now, in terms of changes that are potentially coming, Alistair Kirk having a very good run out of the final corner here, and Matthew Prouting into the pit. So both drivers, both Kirk and also Williams, gaining the position off of Prouting. So Prouting will not be coming out ahead of these guys. But as they make their way into turn number 1, you can see the difference in lines, where Alistair Kirk really heavy on the brakes, really hammering the anchors down. And as they make their way out of 1 and up towards 2, it's a situation with Prouting coming out the pit. Well, James Neve is going to get back ahead of Prouting. You can see Prouting coming out the pits there, and Prouting will not be too far behind, so he can chase after Neve. But we focus back on Kirk versus Williams as they make their way out of 3 and up towards 4, and we ride on board here with the Lamborghini Huracan driver as he follows into sector 2. As they make their way through 4 and up into 5, I think one thing that's very telling here is as they make their way through the corner is how Williams reacts to this pressure. Does he go defensive? He goes a little bit defensive there on the exit of 5. I think just try and signal you're not going up the inside into the chicane, but you can see the difference there with Williams going deep and Kirk having to back off the throttle as he looks to move onto the inside there into turn number 8. And I think Williams there all out of sorts coming out of the chicane. The car did not look as though it was very well composed, and Kirk capitalising. A bit of hesitation on the throttle, understandable given how tight it is through that section of the circuit. But Alistair Kirk making short work in the end of Williams, with Williams making that mistake into the chicane, and it only added to compound his issues going into turn number 8. And Kirk now only the best part of what is 27 seconds off of Michael Sill. And well, Sill right now yet to pit, as is William Ford and Gareth Williams. All 3 of those drivers will need to pit. Stephan Wessels is into the pits from the lead of the AM class. I think it's going to be a relatively routine stop, but we will wait and see, as he's already making his way he's making his way out of his pit box and down to the end of the pit lane. And Alistair Kirk and Paul Williams will come alongside here, and I do wonder whether we're going to see Stephan Wessels emerge with these guys. No, he does not. In fact, he's behind them, and as a result, right now the battle for P4 rages on between our 2 pro drivers. But I think Kirk is going to gradually pull away, although I say that he gets a bit of a poor run there out of turn number 1, and as a result it is enabling Paul Williams to close up gradually as they make their way into turn number 2. But no change at this point in time, but one driver who will want change at this time, it will be Matthew Prouting. He will want to get David Favo out of the way as soon as possible, because then it is about pursuing James Neve to the finish, and James Neve is only 4.8 seconds up the road right now from these 2 as it currently stands. And for Prouting, anything, that will be a huge upturn in the result if he's able to find that position as they make their way through turn number 2. And you can see there Favo just going a little bit deep. He's able to bring the car back together as they go into 3, but Favo just getting a bit out of position, and as a result this will be the first opportunity. I think Proutin's going to have to get really close, although it looks like he's backed off to a degree in the run up to 4 here, where the fact it's going to be a bit too risky to get that close so early on in the lap as they make their way through turn number 5. As they do so here, the 2 closest drivers out on circuit right now, things calming down to a degree as all our drivers make their way on through. We can see that Paul Williams there making his way up behind what is Kirk going into turn number 12 right now. No change between these two, but Paul Williams naturally starting to fall back a little bit, but we do have to wonder as well how hard Alistair Kirk has pushed the tyres on that Lamborghini in terms of has he overdone it in his pursuit of trying to gain places. And right now, to correct the gap I stated earlier, Alistair Kirk is 32 seconds off of the back of Michael Seal, and I think for Kirk right now, with our top 3 yet to pit, to be fair, can Kirk jump ahead of any of them, or will it be a bridge too far? That will be the question as they make their way onto another lap here. On to lap number 25 they go, our leaders, and we can see looking from our battle for P4 up towards our leader right now, Gareth Williams, who with a 12.8 second advantage over William Foyle right now just needs to keep this one smart and keep it tight and bring it home come the end after his pit stop. But as he makes his way on through for the time being, we're hearing that Davide Favo into the pits from what was at the time P2 in the AM class, and as a result it will now be Travis Linscome-Hatfield who takes that P2 back as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, and Favo will be gradually dropping down the order whilst he's in the pits. We'll wait to see where he emerges when all is said and done, but we can see Hatfield doing everything he needs to right now to bring home another strong finish in this series, in his second round of this series that he's participated in, and it's all signs are pointing upwards for the American driver, as behind him his next opponent who's trying to chase after him will be Darren Doherty, and Darren Doherty, the Irishman right now from Altitude Esports. To give you an idea or comparison of the 2 times, it is the case that Darren Doherty lapping approximately 0.2 of a second faster than Linscome-Hatfield over the course of each lap, and Linscome-Hatfield only at this point in time about 7 seconds up the road. And to give you an idea of the gaps between our drivers, particularly within each of the classes, and we'll show you the top 5 in each class now as we just bring it up on screen. You can see the top 5 there on the pro drivers, and right now Foyle and Seal into the pit. So my apologies ladies and gentlemen, we're going to cut away from that analysis to see how this all plays out with Alistair Kirk right now coming through the turn 13 and up towards 14 here. Now remember, he lost a lot of time for a mistake earlier on. He's got Paul Williams putting pressure on him as well. Williams is not giving this one up, and as they emerge out of the final corner, where is Michael Seal? Where is William Foyle? And they're both coming out ahead here. So as a result, Alistair Kirk has lost out 2 positions with that one mistake as they make their way into the braking zone here for turn number 1, and that is a disaster. But he will see the targets ahead of him. He will know that Seal and Foyle are only 4 seconds away in their entirety, with Seal being only 1.7 seconds up the road. But he's got Paul Williams behind him right now, and the Ferrari driver definitely coming alive towards the end of this race. How will it all play out? That is the big question as these four drivers make their way through 3 and up towards turn number 4 right now. It's anyone's guess which one of these 4 are going to be on the podium when it is all said and done. But meanwhile, as we look from them to our AM drivers, it is the case that our top 5 right now, Stephan Wessels, Linscome-Hatfield, then Darren Doherty, then Gareth Mills, and then Davide Favo with Jack Widebon, Mark Baker and Chris Keenan just outside the top 10 as Gareth Williams is into the pits from the race lead overall and the lead of the pro class, I should say. And with that in mind, I think this is going to be a relatively routine pit stop for our leader, or will it be? That's the big question as he makes his way into the pits here. And we can also see Jamie Dory has come into the pits. But meanwhile, looking from the pit lane to outside the pit lane, I can tell you that Josh Wiggins right now closing up to the back of Davide Favo, who's come out the pits quite recently. And well, Wiggins will be trying to make the pass on the AM driver here. They're not battling within the same class, of course, as Gareth Williams has already finished his pit stop. I think it's going to be a routine service and now run to the finish as Wiggins looks to try and get past Favo, but no way through. This time, as you can see, those rear brakes are lighting up there. The carbon ceramic disc glowing red hot. But speaking of red hot, I can tell you that Alistair Kirk right now, he's still got Williams behind him, but he is now starting to break away from Paul Williams and starting to inch closer to Michael Seal. We still do have 13 minutes to go. That equates to approximately about 7 to 8 more laps. And right now, Alistair Kirk knows he's got to get a move on if he wants that P2, because he had that P2, he lost the car going into turn 8, and now he's got to try and bring it all back together. And he is moving closer and closer to the back of Michael Seal as they come come into turn number 2. Under braking he goes here, not close enough for the time being. But again, look at the discs lighting up there for Sil. I think the Porsche drivers are really struggling with brake temperatures here at Hungaroring, and it is very telling as they make their way up through 3 and into 4, whereby it looks as though Sil has got a lot of pressure building. We ride on board the gearbox here of the Indian Motorsport driver as he makes his way through 4 and up into 5, and it's only a matter of time, I think, before Kirk tries to send the first move in as they emerge from turn number 5, and you can see that right now still holding on, but as they come into the braking zone for the chicane, no way through it this time, but Alistair Kirk literally sniffing every opportunity here, looking for every little nook, cranny or space where he can get the nose of that Huracan in and get fully alongside to make the move happen. As they come through turn at number 9 and then head through in towards 10 and 11 right now, you can see again when they make their way through this flowing sequence just how quickly Kirk closes up, with the Indian Motorsport driver still struggling, it would seem, to make the break or find any way of putting some distance and keeping that Huracan at arm's length. They come down to 12. There's no attempt at a move here. Kirk knows to go for it in the run down towards turn 1. That will be his best opportunity and his safest opportunity as they come through turn number 13 and into 14. It looks though Sil's gone a little bit deep as we look to the exterior cameras here, but he keeps it together for the time being. Now it's all about the exit of the final corner. Will we see Kirk nail this exit? Will we see Sil nail it? Well, it looks so Kirk is very close here as they emerge from the corner, and this is a very good opportunity. 2.5 tenths as they came out of the corner. It's now about the drag race down towards turn 1 as they go on to another lap. 11 minutes remaining. Michael Sil stays to the outside here. Alistair Kirk looks to the inside. Into the corner they go, and it's Alistair Kirk there who makes it onto the apex curb. Sil has to give him the space. There was a small smidgen of contact, I think, but as they make their way out, Sil loses the position there with Alistair Kirk getting the job done, and now up into P2. Will we see Sil come back at him? I don't think so this time. I think he's going to be more aware of the fact that Paul Williams will gain from all of this. Now Paul Williams is only 7.5 tenths off the back of this battle for P3 as they make their way through 3 and up into 4. Now as they come charging up the hill once again here, I think Michael Sil may look for a return opportunity if he's close enough coming out of sector 2 and in the run down towards turn at number 12. That's probably the best place where he'll be able to get that advantage. Will he be able to stay that close? That is the question. Well, he's losing out already here, and Paul Williams staying within reach of Sil, but I think it is the case that we're starting to see a return to natural order in terms of the relative pace of the drivers, although I say that Michael Sil getting very close in the run through 8 and into 9, and I don't think we can discount the Porsche driver yet. He is trying to push as hard as he possibly can to close up to the back of Kirk here, but he's not able to find a way to really get under the skin of the Lamborghini Huracan driver as they make their way down towards turn number 12. And Paul Williams too far back to get involved at this time. He's just a spectator as they make their way through 12 and into 13. And as they come roaring up into the left-hander here, one of our many hairpins at this circuit, you can see Sil falling backwards, and now this is an opportunity for Williams because Sil going a little bit deep there. He will see Williams, there's an opportunity to start to strike versus the Porsche driver ahead of him, although the Ferrari and the Porsche quite evenly match down the straight. It will be the case that Williams will have the tow, although I say that Sil will also have the distant tow of the Lamborghini Huracan of Alistair Kirk as they make their way down towards turn at number 1 once again. On to lap 28, 29 these drivers go, and as they make their way down to the braking zone, no changes between them this time, although we can see Sil's gone very deep under braking. I do think he is struggling with those brakes as they make their way down towards 2, and right now Paul Williams trying to get into the position to strike here as they make the way through at the left-hander of 2 once again. But can he find a way on in? It does look as though under heavy braking it is one of the situations where the Porsche loses out. When there's less braking involved, that Porsche seems to be able to open up the gap, but as soon as the brakes have to go on hard, it's the case that there seems to be a risk of a lock-up, and Williams will need to capitalise on that as they come through the left-hander of 4 and into 5. And as they come on through here, it's the situation where Williams just not able to close up enough for the time being, but now they head towards the chicane. Can he do it in sector 2? Well, as they make their way through the chicane there and head up towards turn at number 8 right now, it's one of those situations I think where Williams will be biding his time. He'll need to do a lot of analysis here, see where he can gain, where he's going to be able to make that move, where Sil is vulnerable, where he's strong. And that's what Williams will be teeing up right now as he looks for that move in the near future. Meanwhile, in the battle for P3, we of course, sorry, the battle for P2 I should say, we're looking at our P3 man of Alistair Kirk here, and meanwhile only 2.9 seconds up the road is William Four, and here is William Four in P2, the Crest Autosport driver. The gap between these drivers closing at this point in time, but what we can see, it's a situation where I think for Foyle right now, he is gradually being reeled in by Alistair Kirk behind him. Kirk gaining by 2 to 3 tenths a lap, but there there is a sizable amount of time, and based on that current pace, there should be no pressure until the last lap. Meanwhile, Sil is under that pressure from Paul Williams here, as it's the case that Williams had the better run come the end of the previous lap, and as they make their way down towards 1, Williams is swinging to the inside, under braking they go into 1, and Williams not close enough to get fully alongside, but he's putting that pressure on, is the Ferrari driver, but look who's catching up to the pair of them. It's our AM leader of Stephan Wessels here, and Wessels, to be fair, doesn't need to get involved in this or cut past them, because he has got an absolutely huge gap to Linscome-Hatfield, his main rival for the lead in the AM class race here in the feature race. Wessels can just watch this one, but I think he would like to put a little bit of pressure on the guys in front, as he was saying in the post-race interview. He enjoyed putting a little bit of pressure on Maury in the sprint race. Can he put that pressure on again here? And of course, Paul Williams will not want that pressure, because he's already trying to enact enough pressure on Michael Sil, as we ride on board here with the pro driver of Paul Williams. He looks for that P4 position, but he's going to have to find an inventive way to get it done, because Michael Sil will know he's trying to come for the position as they make their way out to 7 and into 8 here. But you can see through the chicane there, Williams just not comfortable at carrying the speed compared to Sil, particularly over the apex of turn 7, where Sil was just able to attack the sausage curve with reckless abandon as they make their way into 11 right now. I think Sil was having to dig deep. He's having to dig so deep to keep Williams behind him right now, with Williams meanwhile just playing it nice and safe. Every lap is a gentle lap here, just keeping that pressure on as they make their way through 12 and into 13. Again, looking to the inside here, Sil is very, very compromised coming out of 12 into 13 as they emerge on the turn 13 hairpin into the final hairpin of 14 here. It's the case where Williams looking for that good run out of this final corner. He gets a nice line, but a little bit high on the apex curve there. It's going to be enough, and look how close he is as they emerge from the corner. Now he'll pull out the last possible minute as they make their way down towards turn number 1. We look to the blimp here as they come charging on down. It's Williams on the inside. He's fully alongside this time. Meanwhile, we've got Sil on the outside. Now Sil going early on the brakes. He's going to look for the cutback, but he's not able to find it. And as they make their way down towards turn number 2, that is Paul Williams who's made the move for P4 versus Michael Sil in a classic move into turn 1. But still, to be fair to Michael Sil, I do think that Porsche right now, the brakes on that Porsche are absolutely on the limit, and Sil has been driving to his utmost in order to hold on to that position. But in the end, can he come back? That is the question right now with 5 minutes to go. He's not giving this up, and it only takes one minor mistake from either of them to see this battle intensify or become more sparse. We'll have to wait and see as they make their way through turn number 5, and as they come on through at this point, I think Team Tetra Rouge will be jumping up and down in the pit lane right now. There'll be scenes down there, but then there'll also be a little bit of nerves right now, because Ignium Motorsport will surely be roaring on Michael Sil as he tries to come back here in the battle for P4. Most of the positions in class have been sorted, but not this one. And if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen, if something happens elsewhere, we will take a look, but we're going to focus right now on this battle for P4, because it's not quite over yet as our drivers make their way down towards turn number 12 for what for them is the 31st time of asking as they come into that right-hander. I can tell you a bit further down the road, in fact, as we look away, Mark Baker right now, our leader in the AM Class Championship, is trying to get past Jack Wyvon here, with Mark Baker having that disastrous start to this race. He's currently in P7 in class as Jamie Dory into the pits once again, so he's not got enough fuel, and it is the case that Mark Baker trying to find a way past Jack Wyvon for what is P6 in the AM Class, and some key points to get on the board. He looks straight into turn number 13 here. He can't quite find the move and instead has to wait patiently. Paul Walton is also closed up to the back of Kosh Kelly in the battle for what is effectively a P8 in the pro class. But meanwhile, as Baker tries to hunt down Wyborn here, will he be able to look for the moves? We can see Wyborn's rear wing there a little bit angled and bent out of shape as Baker's very close here. I think it's going to be a similar move to what we saw from Williams on Sil as they make their way down towards turn number 1. But you can see Wyborn defending it. Baker's going to try and go all the way around the outside, or will he look for the cutback? Well, Wyborn's going to take away the cutback option immediately by parking it on the apex, and as they make their way out the corner, Baker gets the better exit, but I don't think he's got enough of an overspeed here, and Wyborn shuts the door as they go into turn 2. Baker's going to have to wait until later in the lap to try and get this done. But how long is he going to wait? Because right now he's not got much time left. There's only 3 minutes left. Approximately 2 more laps for these guys as they make their way up towards turn number 4. Meanwhile, I can tell you a bit further up the road, it is the case that Paul Walton trying to hunt down Kosh Kelly ahead of him. Paul Walton having made those stops. It is the case that he is in P11. Overall, that is P9 in class. And he's trying to get that P8 in the Pro Class of Kosh Kelly come the end of this race. But will he be able to find it? That will be the big challenge. And I do think that Michael Seal, we're hearing that gap has opened up between Seal and Williams in the battle for P4 in the Pro Class. It's opened up to 1.1 seconds. So that battle may have now subsided for the time being, unless one driver makes a mistake. But speaking of battles that are not subsiding, you can see him, Mark Baker, all over the back of Jack Wyborn as they come out of turn number 11. Wyborn defends the inside there, squeezing Baker and saying to him, there's no way to the inside for you, as they make the way through turn number 12. Now Baker here will know that he's going to have to really force a move here on Wyborn to get the job done. Where could he do it? Well, I think if he can nail the final corner and not be lured into trying to go for the move in the final corner, he will have an opportunity as he makes his way down into turn 1. And look how close Baker is now as they emerge out of the corner. He's very close. He's 3/10 of a second. In fact, not as close as he would like to be. And in fact, Wyborn having the better exit out of 14. And as a result, this is going to go on deeper into lap here. Baker pulls off the racing line, looks to the inside. Is he going to go late on the brakes? No, he's way too far back to go for it. That would be the lunge of the century, and then a half. That would be a Daniel Ricciardo style move as they make the way out of 1 and up towards 2. And as they come up towards turn 2, right now it's the case that Baker getting the better exit out of 1. He's all over the back of Wyborn. He looks to the inside here, and Baker's going to try and squeeze, and he just about gets his nose in there as Wyborn went to turn in, but they're side by side still coming down through turn number 3. And in the end, Baker goes round the outside to complete the move on Jack Wyborn. Brilliant battling between the two of them, and Mark Baker up into P6 in the AM class, P19 overall, with only one more lap to go for these two after their current lap, and that will mark the end of their race, we believe, with only 1 minute to go right now. And our race leader is coming out of the final corner to go on to what for him will be his final lap and the final lead lap, which will be the 34th tour of this circuit in the feature race. As he comes across that timeline, he goes on to lap 34, and it's looking good for Gareth Williams right now with a 17-second advantage over William Foyle, who makes his way through the final corner to go on to the final lap. Meanwhile, further down we can see that Alistair Kirk here giving that pursuit of William Foyle. He's not closing up enough though, and as we said, it was going to either be on the last lap or it's not going to materialise that contest. And you can see as the white flag waves there in the background, this will only spur Kirk on, but he's only closed up at a rate of 0.4 of a second a lap on average. It's not enough to get this done. He will need the intervention of the racing gods, and meanwhile it'll be Paul Williams here in P4 who's broken away from Seal after making that move, and Seal now in P5. And whilst he has fallen back, I think Michael Seal at this point just focusing on bringing the car home. But speaking about a battle that could go to the wire here, we can see that Paul Walton chasing after Kelly. These drivers, of course, also on the lead laps. As a result, they will do that 34th lap. And Walton trying to find a way on in here. As we can see, Linscome-Hatfield moving out of the way. Does not want to get involved as the AM driver in this battle for the pro position as they make their way down to the braking zone for turn 1. But it doesn't look as though Walton's anywhere near close enough to attempt to move. Even coming into turn 2, I think Walton is having to wait until the end of the lap. But I don't think he's got enough in him to be able to get this move on. I think at this case the RD Simsport driver may just be settling for P10 overall, what will be P9 in class. But meanwhile, I'll tell you one driver who will be settling for a very pleasant drive to victory as he makes his way through turn number 13. It is the case that Gareth Williams came to this round needing to get maximum possible points in order to take over the championship lead in the pro class, and this win is going to go a long way towards that because he emerges in the final corner. Gareth Williams will take the win in the feature race, both overall and in the pro class at the Hungaroring, with Joshua Williams finishing P14 behind a lap down. And then it will be William Foyle who, as he makes his way through the final corner here, will come home in P2. A brilliant drive from Foyle, not enough to take the win, but a great drive all the same from the Crest Autosport driver, who holds off Alistair Kirk in the end, who comes home to complete our pro podium. Paul Williams with one of his best drives of the season so far. The Team Tetra driver comes home in P4 ahead of Michael Seal in P5, and then it is Stephan Wessels in the rearview picture we now focus on, who makes it back-to-back wins at the Hungaroring in the AM class. A brilliant drive from Wessels, and indeed one of our fastest AM drivers that we've ever seen, as James Neve meanwhile will come home in P7 overall, and that is a P6 in the pro class, which I'm sure he'll be very happy with. Matthew Prouting just behind there in P8 as we see Mark Baker crossing the line ahead a lap down, and it is Paul Walton in P9 who did find a way past Kosh Kelly in the end. He did manage to make the move. We're not sure where it happened, 7, but he managed to get the move done on Kosh Kelly to take P8 in the Pro class, P9 overall, as Kosh Kelly came home in P10. Travis Linscome-Hatfield comes home second in the AM class. Another brilliant pair of drives for the American and a great feature race for him. Darren Doherty has come home P3 in the AM class to complete our AM podium, and it is Gareth Mills who, as he makes his way through the final corner, will be our last driver to finish on the lead lap. Another solid drive from the GM Racing outfit, and Gareth Mills, I think, will be smiling about this one. The points are coming for the AM driver as he makes his way across that timing line and now gets ready to bring the car home into the pits. But really right now for this man here, Gareth Williams, I think for him this is going to be a race to savour, and this could be where the tide turns in the Pro Championship for him, because knowing this result plus the fact that Paul Walton was not able to participate in the sprint race due to the race ban, as we can see William Foyle there pulling up alongside. I think Foyle and Williams exchanged some words over the radio there, very happy with the performances. And Stephan Wessels, let's not forget the AM driver who put in that absolutely sensational qualifying lap to out-qualify everybody in both classes. I think Wessels, his star is shining brighter with each and every race right now, and he's finally nailed down that consistency which plagued him for so long in the early stages. It is coming together for the rookie, as meanwhile we can see, looking back to Williams and Foyle here as they make their way down into turn number 13, and in the rearview picture there, that is Sykes, that's Elwyn Sykes, who couldn't quite make it another podium finish, but Elwyn Sykes coming home P23 in what was at the end of the day P9 in the AM class when all said and done. A brilliant race for all of our drivers, and now we get ready for our post-race interviews with our race winners. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll bring you those interviews as soon as humanly possible, most likely within the next 3 to 4 minutes. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we'll kick off our post-race interviews with our winners from the feature race, and we'll start off with our AM winner of Stephan Wessels this time, the number 227 driver who has made it 2 out of 2 here at the Hungaroring. Hello, Stephan, can you hear me?
How's it, Paul? Yeah, loud and clear.
Brilliant. And Stephan, another brilliant drive from yourself, making it 2 out of 2 tonight in the AM class. How does it feel to have made it another perfect evening in terms of wins?
No, it was great, eh? The plan that I set to you after the sprint race was exactly what I executed, and yeah, it worked out. So yeah, very happy to have two clean races, and also very happy with the pace.
Oh, indeed, that pace was looking strong, but I do have to ask, at the start of the race, we did see quite the instant running down for the first couple of corners, including a car that was upside down emerging out of turn 3. Just take us through what you saw in all of that and how you reacted to it, because obviously you were right at the towards the back of the field. Was it a case that you had to take evasive action, or was it one of those situations where you're sort of, okay, well, I'll just take all these places for free, thank you very much?
It wasn't unexpected. So from the start, I dropped back completely, and yeah, I was ready for something to happen, and then something did happen, and luckily I was able to avoid most of it. And yeah, from there it was just taking my time and getting positions. I had one nice move, doing a double overtake, which was quite cool. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I'm very happy with just my consistency throughout the race.
Oh, indeed, it was a very consistent performance from yourself and making your way up into the lead. And I do have to ask, with regards to the strategy, was it all as planned in terms of when you chose to pit, or did you need to react at all to the situation around you?
No, the plan was just to go as long as I can until I get to a point where potentially catching someone that I don't really want to battle with. So I was catching up to 1 or 2 pro guys, so I decided to pit. Coming out of the pits again, I was behind Gareth Williams and Alistair, the 3 of them, and they were having quite a nice battle. So I decided I'm just gonna hang back and let them just have a cool battle. And yeah, it was quite entertaining from my side just to sit there and yeah, it was fun.
Indeed, we saw that you were behind that battle and taking a bit of a spectator seat view. And now looking ahead to round number 6, the first of our 2 super endurance rounds in a week's time. 2 hours of Le Mans. How are you feeling for the legendary French circuit?
I'm going to have to learn the track. I know it. Last time I drove there was playing Forza 4 on Xbox 360, so that was many years ago. So yeah, I'm going to have to put in some time for that one, but looking forward to it.
Oh, indeed. Well, we do hope the practice goes well. But until then, congratulations on winning today's feature race. And we look forward to seeing you at the Le Mans circuit in a week's time.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All the best.
Cheers. Keep up.
So hearing there from Stephan Wessels, happy with his performance and executing it exactly as he said he would in the post-race interview following the sprint race, where he just hung back at the start, let everything happen on the opening lap, and then went to work in gaining the places. And indeed, Stephan Wessels showing not just pace and very blazing fast pace, but also race smarts and a strategy element which is going to take him far going into the future races. And we look forward to seeing what he can do at Le Mans, of course, in his first exposure to the super endurance event in this series. But we go from our winner in the AM class to our winner in the Pro class, Gareth Williams. Let's get him in here for a post-race interview. Hello, Gaz, can you hear me?
All right, yeah, loud and clear.
Gaz, a brilliant drive from yourself from what was quite a difficult start, but you made your way all the way to the front of the field and took the win in the feature race. How does it feel to have secured the win at the Hungaroring?
That one felt pretty good, just because of the nature of the track. You know, not as easy to overtake on. And I think it was pretty much like the dream start, really. And I've just carved way through on that literally at opening lap. And I think I was like 4th or something after the end of the first lap. So, you know, you can't ask for much more than that, can you? Starting from the back of the pro class, very much so.
Oh, indeed, it was a very strong start from yourself. Were you planning to have that sort of start, or was it one of those situations whereby just seizing the opportunities as they came?
It was just all fell into place, really. I just wasn't sure, obviously, being the standing start, how it was going to plan out. But I just thought, try and stick to the outside if possible. And it seemed to work quite well.
And then factoring that into the strategy, we saw you make the moves for the lead quite early on in the races, and then it looked as though you never looked back. Was it the case that you were sort of lapping to a pace in the end, or was it just try and put as much distance as humanly possible from the field?
Bit of a strange one, really, because car just wasn't as quick as it was in practice, so I'm not too sure. At the start, there was a couple of cars blinking going down to the turn one, but I don't remember any sort of contact warning coming up as I drove through them. But yeah, just going down the first straight alone, I was losing about 3 or 4 tenths each lap, so I'm not sure, but I couldn't really. Annoyingly, I turned the fast repair off at the start and forgot to turn it back on for the pit, so I'm not sure whether I did have some sort of aero damage or not. But yeah, it was just trying to hit them low 46s after realised I couldn't go any quicker, sort of thing. But yeah, it seemed to be slightly pulling away the cars behind each lap.
Well, indeed, we could see that gap between yourself and the rest of the Pro Pack opening lap after lap. And I do have to ask, with the championship quite finely poised going into this round between yourself and Paul Walton, I think it was a 7-point gap going into this one, and with Paul Walton having the race ban for the sprint, which means you've effectively taken the lead of the Pro Championship now. How does it feel to know going into the Super Endurance event next week, you are our championship leader?
Feels good, yeah. I'm not sure how his feature race ran. I'm guessing it didn't go quite that well, but I think he got caught up in a couple of incidents, which is, it's unfortunate, really, isn't it? You want to be both battling it out, so it's a shame, really. But it does feel good to be leading now, yeah.
And how does it feel? How are you looking forward to the race at Le Mans in a week's time? Is it a circuit which you feel comfortable at?
Yeah, I do like that track. I'm not too sure how the BMW is going to handle there, but we'll see. Take it as it comes.
Oh, indeed. And we look forward to seeing you take to Le Mans circuit in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview room, and congratulations once again on a brilliant drive to take the win in the feature.
Nice one, Paul. Thanks.
All the best. So hearing there from Gareth Williams, happy with that performance. I think ruined the fact he didn't have the opportunity to battle with, say, Paul Walton going through today's races. Of course, enjoying that championship battle, and that's a natural part of a racing drive. You want to be the winner, but at the same time, you do want to battle with your championship rivals. But at the same time, he did have to face some of his own battles in the feature race. What was that brilliant standing start, which saw him jump right up towards the front of the pro field come the end of lap number 1, then siphon his way through the remaining drivers before going on to take the win by a significant margin. And that really is going to shake up the Pro Championship going into round number 6. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for watching, and we do appreciate your patience once again for the delays between the races. If you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, why not check us out on our official racing website. That is nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, you can also know a little bit more about us via our Facebook group. That is Next Gen Racing on Facebook, and it's facebook.com/groups/NextGenRacing. Also, a big thank you to our partners, without whom it would not be possible to bring you this lobby too. And the lobby named after them, of course, it's Coach Dave Academy at coachdavacademy.com and Next Level Racing, their website being nextlevelracing.com. But now we look ahead to, in a week's time, our final round before the Christmas break in this series. We head to the 24-hour Le Mans circuit, Circuit du 24-hour Le Mans, and it is going to be a circuit which I'll put our drivers through our paces as they'll be taken to the circuit for our first to our Super Endurance race, where it's double points up for grabs because there's only the one race, and this one will be taking place on Wednesday the 22nd of December 2021. And as we can see here from the next time lap in the background, where we have got Paul Walton taking us around the circuit there in the Lamborghini Huracan, and we'll bring you the full onboard next time. This circuit, known to play host throughout the years to a variety of 24-hour events, whether it be in the older classes of cars made famous perhaps by the Ford versus Ferrari movie or Le Mans 66, all the way up to modern day where you have a mixture of cars within the classes of, say, LMP1, GT3 and all in between, including LMP2 as well. This circuit will hold no punches, and indeed whoever pulls off a big result here is going to see their championship momentum on the up going into the second half of the season. This circuit will be one which we saw in the season 1 of this series, where we had both a sprint race and also a feature race here. The battles were intense, and particularly the runs down the Mulsanne straight, which we can see right now as we see Walton going onto the straight. This straight, known for its slipstream overtaking opportunities into the 2 chicanes that split it up into 3 component parts. It is going to be heavily intense all the way through. Plenty of battles, and well, we've only got a week to go before we can see it all happen live, and we'll be bringing that to you. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have here today from Next Gen Racing. That's all we have from myself in the commentary box. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brutus Spit. We have been Next Gen Racing, and from all of us here, until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.